All right, go ahead.
Okay, all right. We'll call the meeting to order. Sarah, if you can take a roll call, please.
Hill? Here. Trudell? Here. Carter?
Here.
Garbrecht?
Here.
Early?
Here.
Baumler?
Here.
Schindel? Here.
All right, just let everybody know, Dean will not be here today. Unfortunately, both him and his wife have COVID. I did speak with him this morning. He is trying to live stream, at least listen in. He will be on, we have a closed session later and he'll be saving his voice for that. So we've got the rest of the administrative team helping out today, and we'll make do without him here, and we hope they get better soon. Do the pledge quick. Ken, you want to kick us off? Sure.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there any, just before, is there anything on public comment?
There's not.
Okay, no public comment. If everyone's okay, we are going to bump up the Washington Middle School robotics from reports and discussions. We'll move that ahead of doing the minutes, so that way these fine young students can show off what they've got, and they can also get home in case they've got any homework to get done. So it's off to you guys.
All right, perfect. So for those of you that don't know, I am Tony Grokowski, the technology education teacher at Washington Middle School, and these are some of my robotics students. So they've been going through now since May. They've actually been preparing for this game that you're going to see here. This is a small section of it. Our field is normally 6 feet by 8 feet, but we just brought a small section today with a couple little blocks just so you guys could get a feel of what they're working towards. So we have 2 different robots here to show you. We're going to talk a little bit about our group, and then I'm going to let my students go ahead and show what their robots can do as of this time. We currently have 2 competitions in the works, one that we're going to travel to, and then one that we're actually hosting. We are hosting our WMS robotics competition February 17th. So that's when we're having our competition. We are currently scheduled to have 24 teams there total, and 2 are our own. The one that we're going to travel to is looking like we'll head off to Appleton. We went there last year at Xavier Middle School, and we competed there. We did very well for our first year going off somewhere. And so we're hoping to go back and really show what we've learned from the previous years. So looking at the board, that's our VEX IQ competition. There are 3 aspects to it. You have skills or driving, you have autonomous, and teamwork. So the upper right corner is a picture of the default education kit that students receive, along with a competition kit, which both groups that I brought today have access to. So the skills challenge, if you are unaware, is that they're going to drive their robot for 1 minute, switching out after 25 to 35 seconds. They must complete the course and score as many points as possible within the 1 minute. Scoring depends on the current competition. So basically, when they're in their skills, they get to drive their robot solo. They are in teams, so it's always teams of 2 or more. And once the buzzer of their 1 minute timer gets within 35 to 25 seconds, they have to switch drivers. So it's not just one driver all the time getting to, drive the robot all the time. They have to swap. So both drivers have to know that robot inside and out to actually go and compete with this. Then they have the autonomous challenge. So basically, it's the same 1 minute, but autonomous means it has to self-drive. So they actually go through and use coding, and they have to make this robot drive completely on its own. And there are a ton of endless variables with that. They have to use a combination of their sensors and parts here to actually make sure these robots can detect everything going on in that arena and then adjust it to those certain circumstances that come along with the competition. In that 1 minute, they don't have to swap drivers because, well, there is no driver. The robot's doing everything itself. So they go through and code this. They can pick it up during that time and reset it if they need to, but otherwise you can't just put it wherever you want. There's certain locations in which the robot can be set. Then the teamwork challenge. This is the big one. This is where they're partnered with another robot at random. So when we're at a competition, they have no idea who they're going to be working with. It can be a school with who is brand new and has 0 experience in the ring, and we could be with one who is a champion 10 years in a row. You never know who you're going to be with. So the whole point is they focus on building these robots to fit a ton of different criteria that they have to meet, because they don't know if their partner is going to be able to do one thing or the other. So they want to make sure that their robot can do as many things as possible, so they're a help to their partner and to themselves when they're in this competition. It's the same thing where they have to swap off within that 35 to 25 second section. So technically there are 4 drivers in this session, and it's 2 and 2 for swapping. So you never know who you're going to be driving with. Scoring, their scores get averaged throughout the whole time that we are competing, and there are skills challenge driver champions and then teamwork challenge champions as well. This is actually our one from when we competed last year. Out of the 40 teams that were there, we actually managed to place 27th. So we did really well for our first time going in there. I was very pleased. We placed 27th overall and 17th when we went to finals. So we were very happy. Their robot construction. So they were given an education kit, a competition kit, and then access to bulk supplies that we've gathered in the years past. They got to use those kits to actually build their robots and to do it for this year's competition. A new one that they received as well, which is the second robot you'll see, is they actually added pneumatic power. So pneumatics is using air pressure. So now there's actually air lines on these robots that they can use to actuate their air cylinders to now do new functions. So that's a whole new thing. We were lucky enough to get one of those kits, and it's opened a lot of doors for what these robots can do. All right, so that's what I've got there for that presentation. No, there we go, not loaded. All right, so their objective, they got to build a robot that can complete the yearly task. So our very first year was to be able to throw these little yellow spheres into a basket. That was 2022. Last year, we had to empty launchers and basically play shuffleboard with robots. And now this year, we have to score the multiple colored blocks that you see in front of you on the floor into the baskets. They got to be able to drive their robot with a controller and by code. Here's some pictures from our last robotics meeting. Students are working hard getting these robots ready for competition. I currently have 31 members, if my numbers are correct. And we've got about 15 robots being built. It's crazy the amount that's going on right now. I've got a lot of 6th graders that joined in this year, and it is great to see how excited everybody is. I had a student at our Fort Middle School session. That's when the new 6th graders come in to get the feel for the middle school and everything. I had a kid who already had a blueprint drawn up the moment he heard we had robotics book. He met me the next day and said, look, I've got a drawing. I'm like, I'm ready to go. And I looked at him like, you don't get to start building for like another 5 weeks, man. But I really appreciate the drive. And he's a member, and he's doing great. We're doing really well. There we go. So here's just more. You can actually see here more of the ring. So it's a lot larger area. This is a supply zone where students are trying to get their robot to go into to get all those bulk blocks out. There's a lot of stuff going on in here, multiple goals. But yeah, students are doing a great job designing these things and working on it. All right, so here's one of our teams that you are going to see today. They called themselves Team Overload. Would you guys like to explain why?
The member who isn't here right now, the Chusta, he's sitting in the middle there. He decided to see how many green blocks he could fit into his machine, and then you get like 23 in there, something like that, and it didn't exactly break it, it more just give it a challenge.
It seized it up a little bit. So that's where their team name comes from. And then we have Team Ava Cubed. You guys would like to explain why you're Ava Cubed?
There's 3 Avas and 1 group.
So we've got Ava, and Ava.
This is our robot BJ. He has the pneumatics kit that took forever to get. And then we just started adding stuff to it. So the pneumatics part. So
yeah, we're very excited to see what that kit can do. All right, so that should have been it. Okay, so now we're going to go through. I'm just going to let my students do a quick demo for you guys. So the whole point of this game is there are an assorted amount of blocks on the field at a time. They're driving in a 6x8 field. So in a 1-minute time frame, they have to be able to gather as many blocks as they can and then score them into those goals. There are 3 goals technically when you have a full field. And every block is 1 point. As you fill the box, the points go up because there's different tier levels and fill levels. So as they do that, they have to know and calculate the points and decide what blocks are higher priority for me to obtain and try to score into those goals. So they have to think of all that while knowing, hey, I only have 1 minute to do this. Now in the teamwork section, there's 2 robots doing it, so you could score a little higher. But when you're in the solo, it's only your robot and your points. So you want to make sure it's all connected, and if you're good, then let's go ahead and show them what you got.
So the first year we had done this, 2021, we had just gotten the simple set and what to do with them. And then that next year, we had gotten into the competition, as they said before. This year, we got 2 more competition sets, and with that came a lot more parts that we could expand on. So, first of all, some of the things we can do, the Omni wheels allow us to slide back and forth because there's rollers on the wheel itself. And then there's the actual drive part. And then the system on front.
You can move over to the right.
Okay.
It's a little far for you to be able to see.
And so you then once it's in the actual robot, we can use the conveyor. Let me see if I can. There.
You might want to grab another green block.
There. And so once it's on there, we actually set it up to
Okay, just go grab it all again.
so and then we wait until the block pops out. And that time it missed, but normally without a block in the way, it will get to the
Yeah, but
front.
99% of the other time,
Not much else to explain about our robot.
Just
And
go ahead and pick up some more blocks, but just quickly drive around and pick up, so, just go ahead and fill up the robot. Just keep bringing more screens in.
And so, as of right now, I think both of our teams are really going heavy on green blocks. And so, right now, there's actually something.
Gotta do the conveyor.
Huh? Oh, conveyor, yeah. So, Petrushka, he isn't here. He is the one who drives the robot the most. He's had the most time with it. So, he would be our demonstration here, but he's off wherever. So,
They're gonna work this.
one last try, all right.
Say that one doesn't wanna come out. There you go.
Yeah, and that's other things we are trying to work on. We are just always trying to change and fix.
I'll remember.
We're always trying to change and fix it, and so that it can actually get it in the goal, because that's something we work on. And would Ava Cubed like to give it a shot?
Ah, robot.
You can get that.
So we're right now working on making a basket so we can fit more blocks into it. And then our pneumatic kit is gonna pop those blocks back out so we can score more. But we're not quite done with it yet, so it's still a work in progress. Can I go over Will you go all the way down to
I know, but he like, here.
It's tough because your cylinder is dropped.
Yeah.
Will it not retract?
I don't think so.
If it won't retract, pull just one of the lines off. It's full of air pressure.
Probably.
So they're having an issue right now because there's a certain amount of buttons on the controller, and they have so many features on this robot right now that they don't have a button left to run their cylinders. So what we have to figure out is how can we free up some of those buttons to now use their pneumatic features? So that's the current struggle right now. Everything is ran there, it's all there for what they need. The scenario now is how do we fix it to be able to utilize that feature now? So I think your robot lost its face there. But that's the current hiccup right now. So we've got some time yet. They're going to continue working on it in the hopes that we can be ready for Appleton, and then we can, really test our robot there. So one of the members who's not here, Ava, one of them, so she was a competitor last year that went with the robot and actually, competed in Appleton last year. So it'll be nice to have her return and try it again. So you may want to just try some greens and we'll chuck them in there and call it a day.
There you go.
So then they'll go into that basket.
It's not supposed to fall.
Yeah. So once they get their basket done, and created, there's some plans in the works there for what's gonna happen with that.
Another thing about our robot is that you can tilt the head all the way back and you can make it into this bowl that has all the blocks in it. But it's still a work in progress because it's really hard to get it into it. So
Very cool.
we've done it before. More like Mr. G's done it before, but can't get it to it now.
All right.
I'll see.
Basic kit, but then they have the ability to adjust the.
Yeah, we have, every one of my members has the basic kit. Only 4 of my groups have the competition kit. And then only 1 of my groups has the pneumatics kit. So, when anybody's ever looking to donate money to robotics, we'll spend it. We're very good at that.
But here's the thing, the pneumatics kit took over.
Well, things take some time. But thank you very much for your time. Thank you for letting us demonstrate this.
Yes, thank you.
If you're ever curious to see what we're doing, we have our meetings normally every first Thursday of a month. So if you're ever curious, just come and check us out and, feel free to come out and watch our event in February. We're very excited for, what the future holds for this group. But thank you very much. And we'll-
Great job.
We can get all the blocks in there.
All right.
And then we gotta get the robots in there.
Thanks again for coming, you guys.
Good job,
Yes, thank
kids.
you.
Good job.
All right, we'll move on to the minutes. We need to approve the minutes from the October 16th, 2023 meeting.
I'll move to minutes. I'll second.
Motion by Sarah, second by Emily. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Financial report. So I think Kim will be doing a financial report today, given that Mr. Hess is out.
Thanks again, guys.
See you guys.
Thank you.
All right.
Alright, financial report. So on your first page of your financial report, you'll see funds 10, 27, 50, and 80. These are main general type funds. We had cash on hand in October 1st of $1,927,905. You can see all the October receipts there, the biggest one being the short-term cash flow borrowing. So that money came in There was a debt premium on top of that, so we earned a little bit of interest at the time, or a premium at the time of the borrowing. And then all of our other usual ones during that time. The October disbursements in the amount of $2,754,047, which left cash on hand as of November 1st of $2,335,632. We did have some November disbursements already to start out the month of $834,564, leaving us with cash on hand today of $1.5 million, $1,068. So now on to the second page, we go into the other funds. We have a Veterans Memorial Fund. We had interest of $142, bringing our new balance to $31,439. All that money is held at the WISC. So it's earning a high interest rate. It's not in CDs, but it's earning about 5% interest. Our scholarship fund, Fund 21, we had some donations from the 50/50 raffles held at the high school for $219, interest of $723, leaving a balance of $171,624. Again, most of the money is held in the WISC accounts, earning the interest there. The activity fund, there were several receipts for $65,369, checks of $62,702, leaving a balance of $290,142. I just moved the money to WISC in the month of October, so we're gonna start to see a higher interest payout going forward. Our debt service fund is all held in the WISC, that earned $640 in interest, bringing the balance to $142,263. Next, Fund 41, which is our capital expansion fund, earned interest of $494, bringing the balance to $139,867. We're actually looking into trying to find some CDs that fit that. It's a little harder at that level of money, but it is invested in the WISC. The Capital Improvement Trust Fund, Fund 46, had interest of $7,257, bringing the balance to $3,556,443. I just reinvested some of the money that's in the WISC back into CDs, so that holds it for the next 2 years in a high interest rate, because the trend they're saying is that the interest likely will come down. They don't know that. They've been saying it for a while, but I wanted to lock it in. Next is the Capital Referendum Fund 49, the interest of $47,099. We did make a payment to Nexus for an installment of $805,116, bringing the balance to $34,580,190. And then finally, Fund 73, which I talked to you about last time. We had interest and now we have investment gains, and you look at the number there, $11,354. It's already taken off within the fund there, and we had payments for our retirees of $11,468, bringing the balance to $1,715,714. So I moved $1.5 million to the OPEB trust. Any questions regarding the financials?
I'm gonna bring up the Amazon capital. Again, this month we spent $9,932.41. Can you explain to me, because you said the board passed where you don't have to put anything on if it was under 500?
Well, that's just an internal procedure that we do. So the way Amazon works is the person, the department lead that buys it decides that they want to purchase the items within their budget. And then a principal or supervisor reviews that and approves it. And then it comes to us and we review it. So when you're seeing the list here, it's just in summary format. So you're only getting, the description is about this big, and we mostly put supplies. So our internal procedure is that when it's over $500, we try to put a better description because we realize, it's a bigger dollar amount. Now, sometimes I noticed that we missed that, and we're trying to, do our best at that. On a particular Amazon bill, a person might buy several pages worth of stuff, glue and paper and pencils, or homecoming is one of the ones that's on here, and in there you're gonna see like streamers and like all the stuff that they buy, and it's hard to make that description when we have this much room. So we'll try to make sure that we're telling you which department is using it that made those supply purchases. But internally, we're watching it. The person that's buying it is within budget, the principal's reviewing it, and we're reviewing it.
Okay, it says supplies in it. I mean, you can write anything that supplies, but in the last 3 months, we spent $27,740.29. I mean, I think we should know exactly where this money is going and what it's getting spent on.
Well, we do internally, like,
Well, I
this
think
is
the
a,
board should know
Do
too.
do you have particular concerns? Do you think something, like,
It would just be nice to know what the money is getting spent on.
so if
I mean,
there's,
you can put supplies for anything.
But I get what he's saying, is that we don't know whether to have a concern or not to have a concern, because it's just all labeled as supplies. So are we getting the whole picture? I mean, I know that we're not supposed to micromanage, understanding that point, but we are approving the financials, and, that does fall under our realm of responsibility.
Yeah.
So I do understand what you're saying.
I understand that. I think my question is, there's other things on here that are for other items that are, far more dollars. We look at the one at the very top, ACP item, that's 35,000, the next one's 56, and, it's a quote, we're not digging down into detail of that. I mean, if there's
Right.
particular invoices, I think it's, if there's, oversight on some of these that's required or want to be looked in, Kim, I'm assuming you can pull up, give an invoice or something and look at, the items that are on it, right? And is that an easy thing to grab?
yeah, we can pull an invoice at any point in time, and then that's the itemized list that I have access to, the department leads or the supervisors have access to, the principals do. So if they want to see it, they can see it. It's just you're not getting it. This is a report that gives it to in summary format. It says that, like, even behind this one that says quote, there's lots of words behind that. It makes it be this big. So the level of detail that is given here is very summarized. If you wanted to see the invoices, that would be another step.
Can we mention their budget? Is it a department budget? Is it each teacher has their own budget? How, is that something, Chad, that maybe you'd like to look at, is like what each department budget is, make sure that we're not going over that?
Yeah, that would be nice too.
But I'm assuming they're staying within budget, otherwise
Yes.
that would be brought up.
Right, I'm monitoring to make sure that it stays within budget. So the budgets are approved, was approved back in October, so at the last board meeting. And then I could take, the high school has the science budget and the art budget, and now they're buying Amazon stuff for their items, and it shows in there. So it's just, you're not seeing that level of detail. You're just seeing the checks and not that back to the budget.
Sure.
I guess,
Can I
go ahead.
just,
Yep.
so I'm assuming, but maybe just some clarification. So when you're saying we approve the budget and then it goes to the high school and then each teacher gets their budget. So I'm assuming, but maybe you can correct me, is that each team gets their, they decide what they need for this budget, probably in advance.
Yeah, last
And then-
February, March, they were giving that, what they needed to their principal, then the principal gave it to me so that I could build it within and bring it to you. And then now it was allocated to them, and they're having to stay within that, and the principal, when they're signing off, has to watch to make sure that they're not exceeding that, or they can handle it within their own budget.
I guess
Would
there's,
have, not absolved, but help to clarify that if it's a transparency problem, to maybe do I don't want to necessarily say random, but say an invoice that's over a certain amount of money, to just pull those out and do inventory. Would that satisfy? You know, an $8.78 supplies invoice that
Right, so I think Kim had said that anything over $500 gets the description, but we would like to see
invoices behind it.
the invoices behind it. Was that kind of what you're thinking?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I guess if you want to pick out, I think the one thing we don't want to do, I mean, it's a pretty comprehensive list, but if there is an interest in looking at, if you pick out a couple invoices in particular, Chad, you want to look at, and it sounds like you can pull those, and those invoices, that's just an easy electronic, and it shows the individual line items quite easy, and it's not a huge, I don't think we want to, at every single meeting, go through every single line item per se, right? But if there's a couple that you want to meet with Kim, or she can pull that, I think that's certainly acceptable.
Yeah, I can pull invoices, but as far as the description goes, we'll do our best and it'll tell you where, but it's not gonna really tell you what because we only have
sure,
so many
right,
characters.
that gives us a little bit more information as to,
Thank you.
Okay,
good topic.
Ken?
I move that we accept the treasurer's report and approve the payment requests in the amount of $2,689,315. Roll call vote, please.
Motion by Ken. We have a second.
I'll second.
Second by Sarah. Sarah, if you can do roll call, vote, please.
Hill,
Yes,
Trudell,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Early,
Yes.
Bowmler,
Yes.
Schindel, yes. Hardback,
Yes. Motion carried. All right, we're off to reports and discussions. We already had the Washington Middle School robotics demonstration. Next, we have the student representative report. Hey, guys.
There you go. This is the November Club Slides update for 2023. First off, we have FELA. This month, FELA had their chapter meeting and was held to discuss many community service opportunities, club activities for the year. Some topics discussed were business tours, community cancer collection, a food drive, cookie baking, and the March of Dimes. The March of Dimes is coming up quickly on November 30th. They will be selling t-shirts, bracelets, sunglasses, and collecting donations throughout the week. All proceeds will go to the March of Dimes organization for premature babies. March of Dimes is an FBLA partnership. Right there in the middle is Josie Sari. She's the one that's been making the shirts this year. And down here, they had their annual Halloween safety project at OFPS, Abrams Elementary School, and St. Anthony's. Their officers and 2 members taught 5K to 2nd grade safety tips for trick-or-treating.
And then with FFA, 4 FFA members attended the 96th National FFA Convention and Expo with Mr. Taylor and Mr. Harder himself. And industry tours included the Fair Oaks Pig Crop and Dairy Adventure, Ozark Fisheries Hunters Honey Farm. Students participated in the Days of Service event to create sensory-based projects. They also attended the opening session and listened to a keynote speaker, Juan Bandana, personal trainer and entrepreneur. Students also witnesses the award and ceremony for the SAE proficiencies, CDEs, and LDEs as well. And then there is a list of upcoming events on the right. So we have the Who's Boots Ag Literacy Night, which is tonight. Then the Mission and Impact National FFA Leadership Conferences at the KI Convention Center in Green Bay. And then they have the holiday fundraiser featuring Mintech Citrus, Springside Cheese, Meats, Pete's Mustard, and Baked East Honey, which concludes on November 27th, and then delivery is processed on December 13th. And then practices have also begun for leadership development events, which are like speaking contests, and then career development events, which are also the judging contests for the winter spring competition dates as well. And FFA week planning has begun for February, and then all future FFA meetings have been moved to the PAC because our membership is so large, surging past 120 members this year.
Next, we have Link Crew. Link Crew had their first small group activity with the 9th graders on October 31st. The topic of discussion was prioritizing. Link leaders discussed how to prioritize your time in high school.
And then forensics, our first meeting is November 28th for the season, and then it's just gonna be like kind of an intro meeting. And then our forensics team members will choose what topic they want to compete in for the season as well. And then topic changes will be discussed as well. And last year we had 24 forensics team members, which is the most it's ever been in quite some time. And then we are just super excited to looking forward and starting our season for this year.
Next, we have the drama club. The drama team performed at sectionals November 1st, hosted by ourselves. Panthers gave an awesome performance of their one-act play Andromeda's Galaxy and earned a return trip to state. This will be November 17th at UWGB. 26 talented high school students are involved in this year's entry. And then a picture of the cast and crew down there.
And then for NHS, our chapter's community service project will be making and donating tie blankets for the children who have hospital stays. And then we're in the fundraising phase for the project, trying to generate funds to purchase tie blanket supplies. And then we also have our Gobblegrams this year, where students and teachers can purchase turkey Oreos, Hershey Kiss, and then in quotes, acorns, or M&M corn cobs for a friend, teacher, or coworker to send a little gratitude in the spirit of Thanksgiving this year.
OFH band had a lot this month. They've been super busy. Last February, Kaylin Rakowski auditioned for the most prestigious honor band in the state. Only the best 9 percussionists in the state are chosen through a rigorous audition process. Out of the 53 top percussionists who auditioned, Kaylin was one of them. She performed for hundreds of past, present, and future music educators and friends and family at our state music conference in October. And here's her doing her little solo up here. At the end of October, during the music education conference, the Wisconsin Music Education Association Aspiring Music Majors Day took place. 3 of our OFHS students, Ashlyn Vanderhayden, Kaylin Rakowski, and Damian Tomei, participated. They learned about different college music programs, what it looks like to be a music major, and more. They had the chance to walk around the exhibit hall where they all picked out their own custom batons, and that's all 3 of them up there in this corner. Last Sunday, Miss Seidel took 29 band and music theory students to see the Milwaukee Symphony Orchestra play pieces that they know, including music from Star Wars and E.T. It was very inspiring for them to see professionally play classical music while waiting for the concert to start. They had the opportunity to write music for orchestra musicians to play, learn how to conduct, and check out new instruments. And they just did our 2nd annual mattress fundraiser. They raised $2,660 for the band and choir trips.
And then for our choir, December 2nd is our Winter Festival of the Arts with our pre-concert starting at 5 p.m. and then our concert starting at 7 in our PAC. So then we have lots of features in our pre-concert, like a choir bucket raffle, a bake sale with the band, and then the drama club is selling hot chocolate as well. And then little students will also be doing like solo or duet musical performances as well. And then, like I mentioned, following that festival will be the combined band and choir concert at 7. And it would be great for as many people to support and listen in on our music and drama departments as well. And we will be singing for the Avenue of Lights on the 25th, the NORTA Christmas Luncheon at Blue Spruce on December 6th, and then the open house on Main Street also on the 6th.
And that's all we have for tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.
I could just mention, I applaud you 2 every month. I know it can be kind of monotonous, but like this is literally why we want to be up here, is because of all the opportunities that this district gets to provide our high school students. And I just can't thank you enough. You guys do an excellent job. So thank you.
Thanks. Okay, next we got technology report and Mr. Corey Jeffers.
Make this one quick. Each year, we go through a technology update, so I try to provide that for you in the first semester, and in that sense, about 2018, just kind of figure out what the technology team's up to. So we'll go through it quickly, and just as a reminder of strategic plan, where the part that you'll be seeing is based on 2.6 in here, which is that maintain a robust technology infrastructure. This is our entire plan. feel free to peruse it someday. But it's, we're working towards it, and which we have been since 2021. So pretty much everything you see today will be part of that plan. The lower right-hand corner will kind of show some of the updates of the things we've accomplished, and they'll be labeled based on that plan. So just give you a little snapshot of the network, just to give you an idea. These pictures right here is actually a collaboration between Brandon Olson, our network manager, who's here right now, and our computer science students, our first computer science classes in a number of years. Brandon going around and showing them a little bit about what our network's like. So here's what a snapshot of the network: 60 to 70,000 sessions every second. A session is visiting a web page on a Chromebook or checking email, and basically everything between. So during the school hours, we have 150 to 250 megabytes per second. We have about 3,400 devices connected to the internet at any point in time in our network. On our public network alone, about 140 gigs of bandwidth daily, which is where the minority of our traffic is, to give you an idea of how large it is on the other side. Then just an average of about 5 gigs daily of sending and receiving just email alone through Gmail. So it's a pretty busy network. Couple stories of redundancy. A couple years ago, we approved the purchase of some redundant firewalls. Earlier this semester, one of those firewalls went down and it jumped to the other firewall. So, which was really helpful because our district would have been without internet for approximately 7 hours that day. We were out for 4 minutes. So, largely a pretty positive situation as to having that backup redundant firewall so that we could take care of the first one and get it reinstated by the end of the day. Within the same month, we also have a different story of redundancy where there was some fiber that was cut in Abrams. You might have heard of a number of different places around here that were without internet. That would have impacted us, and in fact, it did impact us, as you see in this graph right here. Right around the time it was cut, all of our internet traffic stopped at that point in time. Luckily, we ended up having a second line that comes in from a different location in the state that picked up, and honestly, nobody even noticed. So as far as we were concerned, that would have put us out again until probably 10 p.m. for about a 12-hour period of time, which are, for all intents and purposes, most people in this room probably had no idea that even happened. So it's a good thing that we continue to maintain those redundancies because I think they help us out quite a bit. One of the things that's big for us is cybersecurity training and incentives. So we've been working on that quite a bit. Each member of the organization, when they're hired, now goes through an onboarding training. It's about 11 minutes or so, just trying to get them into the process of understanding what some of the expectations are, how do we operate, how do you report phishing emails, all that kind of stuff. We do monthly phishing simulations. We've been doing that for about 1.5 years now. That graph that you're seeing in here, it shows our phish-prone percentage, and you can see it kind of is starting to go downward, is a downward trend. It starts to grow quite a bit in August. As you can imagine, sometimes people forget about the things that we were doing before and to not click, and they get a lot of emails at that time, so it rises up at that point. Then they take the training in October, and then it plummets about in half, which is where you see that 5% there. So we're aiming for about a 5% to hover at, so we have a little ways to go. Then we do an annual cybersecurity awareness training every October as well. What we added last year was kind of cool, was the Big Fish winners. And so with these ones, we have some criteria. There's a muskie prize, a walleye prize, and a bass prize. And so we provide an incentive to those people if they can follow and finish the things that they do there. One of the things you'll see on that Amazon list is a purchase of some Swedish fish. And the reason it's true. So each month, basically, after anybody that actually reports a simulation accurately gets a little card in their mailbox and one individual Swedish fish that says you're officially awesome. So we've been doing that for a while, and it does actually help. Board members get them too. There you go. So we go through quite a few fish, and I hope that the budget actually increases for that because that means more people are actually reporting them accurately. Multi-factor authentication, this is a big part of it. You can see a number of school districts have already gone down this year. It's some pretty nasty attacks, cyber attacks. A couple of big ones in Minnesota last year. Rochester was one of them. Minneapolis went down. All of the ones that I've heard of in this case could have been avoided if two-factor authentication were actually used, in a lot of cases in students as well. And so we started staff in 2022, at least on our main accounts. We have a long ways to go with this, but our students now, at least on their primary accounts, in January of 2023 that moved forward. So I really appreciate our administrative team, our ITL team, and all the teachers that helped us with this. 6-8, we also moved in that direction. We'll be moving students in grades 2-5 in February of 2024. There's a lot of planning to do with that because students are quite young and it's very difficult to, that's why this has taken so long, nearly 2 years to plan how we're going to do this. And then K1, we're still planning. So and largely what we've we've decided to do with the K-1 is that with that group, we've pretty much eliminated access to every single application that would be on a FERPA or COPA list. So that if there is a situation, we hope that there's really nothing to find, even if it is compromised, because there's really nothing that it can get to, besides a few really basic apps for really young students. New website, this has been in the works for quite a while. And so one of the reasons for this new website was a better mobile responsiveness. Our calendar integration is far better. Announcements and alerts are better. Their directory improvements are good, and our analytics are much better too. One of the things I'll say as a caveat is that it takes a long time for Google to crawl small websites. So for example, what you might be hearing in the audience is like, well, I couldn't find the website. It's possible that portions of it you may not have been able to find at this point in time, because our previous website had about 1,800 pages on it. Our current one has about 70. It's better to have fewer, because then there's fewer places to find the things you actually need. But it takes a long time for Google to go back and crawl those sites and say, oh, this is the one you're using now, not the one you've been using for the last 6 years, and then remove those. So we are down to, out of 1,800, the last indexing I checked this morning was that it's still indexing about 300 pages for us. So it's a significant drop in a 2-week period of time. So it's getting quite a bit better. And as you've seen, we have much better analytics. We're looking at around 60-some% or 70% of people are visiting on mobile versus visiting on a computer. So most of the time, our designs are meant to be looked at on a phone first. So they might be kind of weirdly stretched out at times on a really large screen, because it's very few people are looking at it on a very large screen. So a couple options there. New student Chromebooks in grades 2 through 5. We had 600 new devices. They're anticipated to last for a 4-year cycle. We replaced them 2 years early because we were able to work with the Emergency Connectivity Fund, round 3 for that. So those were using that fund, something that we did not have to pay for locally. And we had a lot of support. I'll just say, actually, Carrie Judd is here. She's in this picture right here. Helping us with this. One of the things that was not paid for in this was what's called the white glove service. So for each individual one, we might actually pay a company a couple dollars per device to unbox all those, take them all apart, put in all the information and the coding, that kind of thing, to make sure that they're ready for students. Did that in-house, and we really appreciate the support of the library media team to literally be tearing open all of what you see right there and making sure that they're perfectly able to be logged into on the very first day of school. So they have really worked hard on that. New staff laptops at the high school. We do a 4-year cycle with this, and so we basically do an elementary, middle, and high. So this was the high school's last one. We're piloting Windows 11 with a number of teachers right now. It is our plan at this point to move towards Windows 11 for the organization, at least for the people that are receiving Windows laptops. Generally, you receive a Windows laptops if you're a certified staff member, because it's largely based upon the need for it at the instructional level. These are a high liability as far as cyber security is concerned. It's not just the cost of the device itself. We need to provide that device with a lot of what's called endpoint detection and response software, which also is tied to a security operations center. So you don't need a lot of that on a Chromebook, and which is why we're becoming more selective in this. Is like, do you really need it? Because it's much more difficult for us to keep track of and manage. And so upgrading memory, we've been doing that too, is that we've noticed that all these devices need more RAM. We've had a standard for quite a while. If we buy the RAM for a stick of that, again, there's another thing that's in Amazon. We buy a stick of RAM, basically, it can cost us maybe $25 or something like that. But if we end up doing that and we buy the computer, the exact same computer with it already inside of there, it'll be $400 extra for that device. So we've been trying to figure out ways that we can really quickly just say, like, okay, let's buy the cheaper one for this one, $400 cheaper a piece, and then we'll just open up all of them and we'll individually put those in there. It takes some time to do that, but it's still probably worth the total cost of ownership there, but it does require human beings to save that cost a little bit. Another big thing we've been doing is we've been working on emergency notification configuration. The last couple of reports you've seen, we replaced the phone system and all the clocks and the bells and all that kind of stuff. That all now has been configured, or at least is in the process of being configured, rather. That configuration takes a ridiculously long time. So what you're looking at is a map right here of one type of notification. So we have 3 notifications for emergency notification that we're going to be doing. These are automated responses. So right now, 911 is finished. Another type is called an educational hold, which is a situation where it's not of like, it's important that kids stay in the classroom, but we're not talking like something that everyone needs to, totally lose their minds over. It's just, it's kind of like, hey, be aware at this point, right? Lots of different reasons that you can do that. Crisis one is more the situation we hope we never actually use that in a real situation, but what you're looking at in this graph right here, this kind of, I don't know what you want to call this graphic here, is that crisis notifications at the top, and in order for the high school, that's what's actually expanded right there. It's one portion of what's expanded. There's the triggers that have to be configured, and then all the individual endpoints. So you can see at an endpoint is anything from a PA speaker to a strobe to a clock to a desk phone to a laptop, cell phone, request to exit sensor, or a door. So all of those things from the push of a button can then be propagated forward and then actually be controlled by literally pushing just the one red button when you're in a situation. It's not magic, so it takes some time to do that. So we're in the process of doing that, and we have all of these approved as an administrative team. So I want to thank the individuals who were a part of that, mainly assistant principals and Joanne also, and Jamie and Brandon, meeting multiple months at a time to try to make sure that we get this going, and talk to about 4 or 5 different school districts about that, the same system that we do about what their processes are. What you're seeing right there was literally probably about a week after we configured the 911, we had a false one where a student decided to just see if 911 would work. Within about, I don't know, maybe 90 seconds or so. Looking out this way is the other administrators who also responded, and Jamie. 4 of us are here, so about all 5. There was 5 people that were there in about 90 seconds in that room to go like, is there really a 911? Is this like really a serious situation? So and all of us got them from different ways. So I got mine on my cell phone. I was walking out the building and ran the other direction, and kind of got the idea. So we know it works, and it's going to be kind of nice to have that. So that's kind of what that image is right there. But it takes a little bit of time to configure.
Can I just comment on that?
Yes.
Just so everybody's aware. So when you dial a number on our phones and the phone is hung up, if you dial an extension, it will automatically pick up like you're trying to dial this person. It'll go to a speakerphone.
Yes.
So that also works with 911.
Yes.
People who don't use our system, there wasn't somebody that didn't like intentionally pick up the phone and then dial the numbers, and if they don't want to do that.
Just sitting on a desk, and if you dial 911 while it's sitting on a desk, it's like ready to let you out to 911, assuming that you have an emergency you want to call.
Unless it's
Yes. That student was very surprised to see us all very shortly.
So Corey, does that dispatch?
Right now, the 911, so this part of it is, it does not dispatch at the moment. We do have E911. So we have an engineer actually coming here to configure the remainder of educational hold and crisis on Friday.
Okay.
And so the next part that actually, that's the final thing that we have for 911 is to actually call the, when you're calling 911 right now, they know through that process who we are immediately. So depending on which of the numbers that you call it from. So if you're calling it from the high school, they'll know that it's coming from 210 at that point in time, North Farm Road. So they don't even need to hear that. So that's something that we check and we configure with, I don't know if that answers your question.
It does, yeah.
They did actually call the room back, and Mrs. Sewald answered and told them there was no problem.
Okay.
So it did connect through dispatch, and then
Okay.
when the person hung up, dispatch called back.
Okay, dispatch called that extension.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
So one thing that we have to do, I think I misunderstood your question a little bit, is that in the crisis one, we're looking at the idea of that even just pushing the crisis button would cause it to call 911 also. So my brain was over there. So my
That's
apologies
okay,
for
yeah.
that. So we have not configured that part yet. You still have to call 911 to get 911.
Okay, but you can't push the
There will be
one.
another way to do that eventually, once we get through with all this.
Okay.
Good question. Physical security, shoot, my animation didn't work, sorry about that. You're supposed to see behind this little picture what's called a request to exit sensor. So what you're seeing now, if you're inside the building during the school days on this particular schedule, when you walk up to an office, you'll hear a click right away because there's a motion sensor that recognizes that you're in the building, that you're wanting to get into that office, and then it'll open up. So that's also on a schedule, because when office employees aren't in there, you don't want anyone to be able to enter at that point in time. So that means you're already in the actual building, and so that only exists on one side, not from the other side trying to get out, right? So a little bit of the way that this works then, here's just a couple things. The cameras, back in 2019, we did a big, huge installation. We had 117 camera sensors. Now in 2023, we're at 256. It's a pretty significant number. When the middle school gets built, it's going to be even larger than that. It requires a lot of storage, a lot of management, and they are oftentimes co-located with doors. So in 2019, we installed 35 doors. We're now up to 48 doors. Some of them are two-sided. Many more schedules going in place, a little bit more to manage. We now have rec sensors, and those are those requested exit sensors in each of the buildings. We have those also at the new middle school. A lot of our cameras are now moved to these smaller ones that are 360 degrees, which pulls up quite a lot of visibility. We also have installed some wireless door release, trying to make it easier on the building secretaries a little bit and the administrative assistants, that you can just hold onto a little wireless button. When you push that button, it opens the door to let a kid out, rather than having to try to find your physical one or do something, because you'd be surprised at how many students come into an office and need to get let out of the office now that it's secure, and they just sit there trying to leave, and they can't leave until someone lets them go. And so we've had some scheduled entrance access too. And then each November, we go through an annual door access audit to be able to figure out who has access to each of these doors, and then try to be able to kind of roll it back or make sure that it's accurate each year. It takes a little bit of time to do.
So Corey,
Go ahead.
as far as, okay, so that's a significant amount of cameras. Who monitors those?
Most of the monitoring of the cameras, well, so first of all, by board policy, we have 20 days that is retained, right? So there's always that 20 days on any of those sensors that you can go back and get. So most of the monitoring of it is, in a lot of cases, it depends on the building, right? So largely, building principals are the ones that have access, and assistant principals have access. Our technology services team has access. It depends on what you mean by monitoring, I guess. None of us in the tech services department are actively monitoring anything other than whether or not these are connected, recording.
Sure, right, yeah.
Soon, Jamie will also have some access to it as well. Yes, yeah, absolutely. It's taking a little while. It probably doesn't seem all that complicated, but like building a role for an individual is a little bit more difficult. So one of the things that's taking a little longer with Jamie's role is like, we just need to build one because it doesn't exist right now. So it reminds me of kind of when we were in 2019 trying to build up all of these when we didn't have any of them. So I don't anticipate much longer that it will be until she has that access.
Okay.
All right. Transportation software, I want to again thank Debbie and Tammy and Brandy. We installed some new transportation software at the bus garage over the course of the last year. It took us a number of months to decide what we were going to go to. This is a lot more effective data. It is cloud stored, which is really nice because the last situation was very difficult for Brandy to update. It's real-time route data is now available for the building office staff. So before they were trying to maintain what was in Skyward, what was in Link software, and what was on a spreadsheet. And it was very difficult for all of these individuals to figure out where are the kids and where are they going, and Brandy was oftentimes double entering all kinds of data because there was the short list for the people that needed to know it immediately and the longer list for the people that needed to know it later, and it was very challenging. So it's really nice to be able to do that. It allows for a lot more planning ahead. There's nightly backups of it, and there's lots of expansion options with this, and I want to talk about a turn with, as Brandy will know this, but you're seeing pictures of actual routes, being able to see where everybody is on a map in the entire organization, and where all their stops are. Turn-by-turn directions are available. Field trip options are available. Number of things that would exist, that we could potentially use in the future. Whereas our last situation that we had, we were kind of stuck where we were, and there was one machine that could operate that, and that was it. And so we had to give, in order for Brandy to edit it, she had to have remote access to remote into that one computer that could access the one thing that could change our route software. So really, really challenging to work with. This is a much better situation. Chrome Sports Squad students, since the last time I talked to you, we went on 2 different field trips, took them down to IT Savvy in Germantown. We've got 6 kids that are in there. We also took them to Camera Corner, so you're seeing a picture of us going on that field trip, kind of looking what actual data centers look like inside of real organizations. Is kind of a cool one. The kids got to see, like, when you don't have room in the ceiling, where do you put the wires? You put them in the floor, you raise the floor up, and then you have little tiles that you can go through and be able to do that. So it's kind of cool to see. This is the repair shop, the professional repair shop, where all of our Chromebooks get sent. So the students that can't fix them, they send them down to here. And this was just a little bit of a situation of seeing like how kind of the solder and processes are fixed, and sort of the higher level detail. Kids were being able to see that. This was a cosmetic repair that was kind of interesting, is that this individual has actually invented something at this organization to be able to melt certain pieces together to make sure that the plastic can be put back onto the Chromebook, and so that you don't have to buy a new shell. And so that's his whole situation. Basically, he's the one person out of like 5 or 6 states that for this company that does that. So kids got a chance to see that. We moved the kids into help desk agents, so they actually use the exact same program that our department uses and our maintenance department. So our students that are in there are actually in there able to track how many tickets they have, what they're finishing, and then use templates, whereas in the past we were kind of doing it through some funky spreadsheets. Now you're getting to a point where the students at the secondary level are able to actually type in their own ticket and then it was responded to by a student. So it ends up being something where they're more invested in that. Digital signage, you'll start to see this at the high school. We've got 9 screens that are currently up there right now. What you're seeing is an overlay of all those different screens. And so for right now, food service, athletics, the school store, library, the commons pillars, those are up there. So basically what you're seeing is that we can monitor what screens are up there at any point in time, whether or not they're on, what's happening with them. And we have different individuals who now are contributing to that content. So you'll start to see these throughout the school district for all different reasons. So it's a little small here, but you'll see, again, the menus up there, the athletic stuff, kind of different changes in schedules, all kinds of different stuff with that. So that's been going well, and we also have those planned for the middle school. A couple of projects that are coming. We have, this is pretty big. We ordered these last year. It took an inordinately long time for them to arrive, so we didn't get to do them over the summer because they didn't arrive during summer. So now we can't really take apart 53 different switches at this point in time in the district. So we're waiting for those to be done. So we have 53 switches that'll be installed. Those are a 50 gig connection versus a 10 gig connection, which we had in the past. Every single switch that we have now will be power over Ethernet, which is pretty important. And then we'll have a minimum of 48 ports per switch. We have better cloud management for them. There's adaptive learning now, which creates some greater securities, so that if a device is plugged in, it can read the MAC address automatically, and if it knows what that MAC address is, it can put it in a certain VLAN to make sure it's in its appropriate secure place just by simply plugging it in. That's a positive thing. It's also utilizing some AI insights for us to help us figure out when we are having a problem, or if there's new traffic traveling to a certain area that's not supposed to be or that's not normal, it can start to control that a little bit before we get a chance to respond to it. Also, when you add that many switches, you also need to back those switches up with battery power so that when you lose power, you can actually store that. And so these switches are a little bit bigger. Last time we replaced these was with E-Rate back in 2018. Those were all end of life by this point. These are lithium-ion batteries that should hopefully, we're expecting the last 6 to 8 years. So the last ones were lead batteries that they run their time eventually, and they start to run down. So we're looking at an average run time about 30 to 45 minutes, which will power anything from phones to APs, in certain cases cameras, and that kind of thing. So it's a pretty important process to make sure that we have some backup in there. So Brandon's got a lot of work to do with this. All right, that's ends the technology update for this last year. Any questions at all? Or?
Thanks for the comprehensive
Yes.
update. It's pretty impressive, the amount of work that you guys are doing, have done, continue to do, and especially with the students as well, Corey, and taking them down to Germantown and Green Bay to see that is pretty great.
Thank you. I appreciate having Brandon and Tammy too. So I really like almost more of our team is here than not. So it's really nice.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Thanks, Corey.
Thank you, Corey. Thanks, guys.
Okay, next up, District Administrator's Report. Obviously, without Dean here, just got a couple of abbreviated comments that I can throw in, and we'll move on to the other topics. So congratulations to all the students involved in fall sports, clubs, and activities. We appreciate the hard work, and they certainly do a great job of representing our school district. Thank you to all the grandparents who participated in the Grandparents' Day at both OFPS and Abrams. These events were highly attended and meant a great deal to our students. Thank you also to our staff for your work in planning these events. I'm not going to go, or Dean has usually a more in-depth review, and we'll have probably a larger one in December when he's hopefully back. And then Emily attended the 2023 WASB Fall Legislative Conference, and she was going to give us a quick update on that.
Sure. So the Fall Legislative Conference was held at the Heidel House in Green Lake this year. 8 hours full of information, but a lot of it was really just kind of thought-provoking. There wasn't a ton of answers. It was a lot of more, here's something to think about for your boards kind of moving forward. So first we had the Assembly Education Chair, Representative Joel Kitchens there. He talked about he called it his bill, but the Act 20 bill, which is a major curriculum change for our K through 3 students in terms of reading. And he just talked about the bipartisan effort to get that pushed through. So more definitely to come on that within the next few months in terms of information. He also talked about the teacher shortage and that Wisconsin is about the middle of the pack in terms of overall in the country in terms of teacher shortage, but he's looking at different initiatives to kind of combat that. So he talked about a little bit the 5-year limit for retired teachers to gain like substitute long-term licenses, talking about possibly removing that, but there's that double dipping issue. And then he also talked about this Foundations of Reading test in the College of Education. We actually have a very low pass rate in the different colleges in Wisconsin. And so he's looking at why, because that's actually preventing a lot of teachers from gaining their licensure. We also had really cool speaker, Charles Franklin, who's the director of the Marquette Law School poll. And he talked about the poll of like schools and Wisconsin public opinion of public schools. And satisfaction of public schools is actually around some level of satisfied, either somewhat satisfied or very satisfied of public schools is at 60%, but that's numbers actually declining. When they polled, when they polled everyone, they asked, would you rather reduce property tax or increase spending on schools? Over the years of 2014 to 2022, more people polled actually wanted to increase spending of public schools. But in 2023, that actually shifted down to more people actually preferred reduction of property taxes. I thought that was interesting. And then another thing polled was who should decide on curriculum. And 34% of people polled said teachers, 33% of people polled said parents. 15% of people polled said school boards. And 5% of people polled said state legislation, which is actually interesting because of Act 20. That's a state legislative law that's kind of going through because our officials recognized an issue with our reading and decided that they need to do more about it. So I thought that was interesting. And then we had Sarah Kempf, who was a researcher in applied population category, UW-Madison. And she just kind of gave an overall of demographics in Wisconsin. And I thought that was really interesting because it's just, she's actually showing that there is a decline in our population in Wisconsin. Between 1990 and 2000, our population grew by 9.6%, but between 2010 and 2020, that grew by only 3.6%. Our aging population is going up though by 32%, where our youth population is going down by 4%. There's been a 15% decrease in births year over year since 2000. And the lowest birth year was, of course, 2020, which I'm sure people can probably guess why that was. So much so that in 2020, we actually had 7,500 excess deaths than births in the state of Wisconsin. So that was, she talked about natural change, which is, births over deaths. And then she talked about migration. And to sum that up, more people are leaving Wisconsin than moving to Wisconsin. And a huge chunk of those people are the demographic of people between the ages of 25 and 34. That's when a lot of people are having babies. So people are leaving Wisconsin and they aren't raising their children in Wisconsin so much anymore. So that was really what was relevant to schools is, that demographic is really what's keeping our public schools, our schools in general, in enrollment, and that's lowering. They did, see, I'm trying to go fast, but there's 8 hours of information. It was all really good. She did say, just to kind of sum it up, the next 5 years, we should expect a 7% decline in public school enrollment, possibly more between town and rural districts. They may see even more. But really what that means is with, much heavier increase in inflation, expenses are still up to keep the lights on, if you will. But with enrollment being down, that means our government funding, we're going to have to kind of find that gap. So school boards are getting creative with that. We also just kind of had a roundtable. We discussed, why is the population, because it's not just Wisconsin, why is the population, just decreasing? And some people thought climate change. People are deciding not to have babies because they're worried about the climate. And they also discussed that the American dream that maybe our generation and our parents' generation had, that definition of the American dream is changing, and people aren't necessarily deciding that they need 2.3 kids and a dog and a job.
Right.
So I thought that was very, very interesting. And like I said, the Act 20 was one of the main reasons why I wanted to go, because that's going to be a huge thing for our district and every district in Wisconsin. But unfortunately, the speaker there canceled at the last minute. So I will try to have more information on Act 20, but I think that the gist of that is that we're, as a board, we're going to have to really support our teachers and administrative staff at the elementary level when that comes, because they're going to have very tight timelines, very different way of learning to read, and we're just going to have to support them with whatever may come with that.
I think
So-
there's gonna be an expense that comes along with
And
that
there's
too,
the
significant.
expense.
Mhm.
And there are grants available, but it's prorated. And so depending on what schools get in first and how much they, the pie, there's only so big of a pie, and then we all get split it. So yeah, more to come on that. So
Thank you for the update. Let's see here, and I know that there's a doodle out there for a special meeting in late November, potentially for policy review. I don't think that's been set yet, has it?
It was for a special board meeting the week of December 4th.
Okay.
So policy committee is November
Right.
28th, but then.
Yeah.
The board meeting is the first week.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I think we're on to old business.
There's one more
Is there?
topic, which goes hand in hand with
Oh,
what
student
Emily just
Oh,
said.
sorry.
yeah.
Yeah, sorry, skip that one. Yeah, student enrollment count.
If you
Yeah,
can
Kim,
think
you've got
that,
that.
this will only take a little bit, but there are more deaths than births. I've been reading on that as well lately, but this is our third Friday pupil count. The yellow line, and you should all have this, shows the last 10 years worth of students and seats. So these are actually students that are physically here in our buildings. And you see in September of 2023, we counted 1,680 students. And 10 years ago, we had 1,778. So we are seeing a decline. However, for the last several years, we've seen it be relatively stable. And when we're looking at our projections going forward, we're looking at a stable number. And why that's important is that's the number that we're using in our revenue limit. So we get a per pupil amount, and that's how the money is decided. So you see there, we have to subtract out the open enrolled in students and add back in the open enrolled out students, the ones that reside here but go somewhere else, and that's how we determine what our revenue limit is. We also get some funding because of summer school counts based on the minutes. It gets translated into a pupil count. So for our revenue limit purpose, we got to use 1,732 students, so up 2 from the prior year. So we've been trending positive. And then down at the bottom, special ed also has a pupil count in October. They have been staying steady. The numbers have been up the last 3 years, but now has leveled off, and we see that correlate with our special ed expenses, that we have more students enrolled in that. Any questions on the pupil count? We will do it again in January. Those two get averaged in over a 3-year, and that's how our revenue limit gets calculated.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Kim. Okay. Now we're on to old business, donations. See if you can bring that up. So a tremendous number of donations, and we need a motion and a second to approve.
I'll make the motion to accept the donations.
Second. Motion by Chad, second by Ken. Any other discussion? Just a huge thank you to all the donations, pretty tremendous. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Capital referendum update. Kim will be doing it. I think today, there's no major Nexus bid announcements or anything like that. So
No.
you're doing just a general update on some of the change order budget updates that we always ask for.
Yeah, kind of what happened now after bid pack 5 and 6 have been approved and what's going on over there. So the change orders, you should have the list of change orders. There were 3 as of October 30th that we were presented with. The first one was adding a 3rd auto door opener at the OFPS building. So it's just an upgrade. It wasn't there before. it just makes that entranceway work a lot more better than it had before. But the other two relate to bid pack 5 and 6. So the way it was explained to us is that these improvements here for $4,722 and $4,125 were small costs make significant improvements to job safety on the site, or to quality. So when the bid packs went out, they did it, based on the drawings, but once the ground was moved and they looked at how lines were going through, or the utilities went through, if they just made these little adjustments, it would make an overall significant improvement. So they presented that, and we did approve those, so they're moving forward with that. Now that bid pack 5 and 6 is going, we received an amendment to the contract. So the contract that you signed, we had the amendment number 1, and now we have amendment number 2, and I'm taking all that data and reconciling it to make sure that what the bids that you've approved are matching back to the bills and doing that. So I went through that today. 83.4% of the 37.63 million came in slightly below budget, as you know. There's 16.6% of the money budgeted still yet for the remaining middle school bid packs, and that's mostly the stuff inside: your cameras, your door access, furniture, fixtures, equipment, the PA system, audio visual, and there's a large amount set aside for contingencies, and Brent has told you about that before. So none of the contingency has been touched. We also have a budget set aside for the existing middle school demolition, the OFPS roof, and the high school roof. So it's all on track and all reconciled at this point. So over the last 4 weeks, Mike Bushy and I went last Tuesday, November 7th. There was what's called a push-pull scheduling meeting. So all of the major company reps for the different work scopes within the bid pack were there, and then they all are together in a room with their Post-it notes, and they make like a big board to figure out who has to do this, and then this comes next, and this comes next. It was a really interesting process to watch. So they did that to make sure that they're on track, and they have their schedule all the way through July 4th of 2024. At this point, 1/3 of the footings and frost walls have been poured, so you can kind of see that when you're driving by. They completed all the storm drains except at the loading dock. They have to put the loading dock in first and then the drain. All of the water from the property is draining into the pond at this point, so the pond is filling up. And 80% of the road and parking areas are roughed in within 1% of grade. So it's about where it's going to be. In spring, they'll fix the ruts and bring it back up to 1% grade, and then the asphalt will actually be in fall of 2024 at the table there. So it's just got to get through winter, and then they'll pave it next fall. Mass grading excavation is done. They're now digging and backfilling. Backfilling must be of frost-free material, and they're testing daily of compaction, and it's on track. So it's a really big deal, and we're fortunate that we're having this warmer weather, so they're not having those issues, and it's getting ahead. The utilities contractor is now done this year. The sewer, fire hydrants, and water piping has been installed to the building, and it's ready to be worked with over the winter. So it's there, and now it'll be attached to all the components as they start building it. They've been collecting permits. They got the DNR license to tap into the city water. That just came this week. And they got the permit for the pond. The electrical service, the city has been working on that, it's running to the back of the building, and it will supply power to the job site. But I was actually told that the unit that's put there is large enough to power half the city. So it's enough power to do a lot of things that we may want to do over the years. So it's overkill. I guess it's like we got a Lexus power, that's what I was told. Mr. Heisel's tech ed class got to go into the field. They were wearing hard hats, just so you know. And they talked to the quality control inspector from Bay Area Testing and Point of Beginnings. These are some of our vendors. Point of Beginnings does the survey about how the building is being laid out and to see what kind of jobs are available on the job site. So they got to see it in action. They got to watch the concrete be poured into the footings. So the classes that are for spring and fall of 2024, they're looking for projects that the class can actually do over there, maybe some casework or countertops, or they were looking at maybe they could build the dumpster corral and that the students would actually build that themselves. So they're going to figure that out. And going forward in the future, the second push-pull meeting where they build the schedule from next July will be this April, and that will bring it up to completion. So in April, they'll know if they're on track for us to go into school on time. So they're plugging away at the footings and the frost walls, so they're ready for the steel structure in January. So you're gonna see it start to take shape in January. It won't be enclosed, but you'll see the floors go up. And they're working on submittals. Our site superintendent, Mike, over there, the submittals are where we've already picked out different finishes and stuff and making sure that gets ordered now so we get it in time. Because there's supply chain issues, as you know. So that's what's been going on, and there's a lot of activity over there. Okay, any questions?
I'd just like to say it's been a year since the referendum. Our taxpayers passed the referendum, so, and it's amazing to see what all has been done in a year. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Kim, do you know when that next round of bid packages actually go up? I forgot the timing on, I realize some of that stuff isn't needed for quite some time.
We just started talking about furniture, and getting that ordered, and I know that will be maybe sometime next spring, and I think that's the next big one, is that one, so it's gonna be, it'll be a little bit different.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do we need an action on this?
I don't think
I
so.
don't think so. Okay.
No, you gave us authority to approve the change orders, so.
Okay. No action? All right, move on to vape sensors. So Mr. Stuart Russ and other members of the administration, as well as Jimmy Kuhn, our SRO, will present an update and proposal to the board.
All right. There we go. All right, so kind of want to set the scene here. So back in August, the board heard from Danny and Jamie to help to present kind of the findings of the vape committee that had met. I want to say it was last spring. Danny is when they started. Spring and summer. So and with that information, we. The board at that time tasked us of coming together and returning with some more information on vape sensors. So the things that we looked at, we were supposed to come back with and develop 3 top criteria for adopting and implementing environmental sensors, and then determine 3 products or vendors that would meet the top 3 criteria. So myself, Corey, Danny, Jamie, and John met. And then Brandon also came on board along the way as well as we looked into those categories. So the first part of our first meeting that we held shortly after that last meeting involved us looking at criteria and setting up a rubric for what we wanted to look for when it came to environmental detection. And so what we looked at were reliable detectors that included nicotine and THC. We wanted to make sure that there was some reliable tampering detection. And then also, it was really important to us that we had an ease of use integration with security systems. So we'll talk a little bit more about some of the different avenues that we took. Corey will kind of get into the devices themselves and the background of his involvement with the integration and the technology side of things. So I'll again go ahead and take it.
So I think you have a copy of that rubric. We just kind of, out of all those different criteria, you asked us to pick 3, so these were the 3 that we chose, right? Out of the vendors that we looked at in the area, ones that we're familiar with, we talked to a number of different school districts, and so these were 3 names that continued to pop up. So we spoke with Heartland Business Solutions out of Little Chute, Complex out of the Madison area, and Camera Corner out of Green Bay. All of them have familiarity with installing these sensors, and some of them have familiarity with our security system also. So of the products that they pitched out to us, there were 4 names that came up, Verkada, FlySense, Halo, and Triton. And the first 2 out of there, Verkada and FlySense, not anything really wrong with those. It's just out of the 3 criteria, if they were going to choose that, there was no integration capability with the Genetec security system. So those were ones that if we were to do that, we would have to operate them completely separately from that. And so it was kind of a challenge. Which left Halo and Triton as 2 options there that both do integrate with the Genetec system. Triton was a new integration, and so the companies that were familiar with Genetec, Halo has been in that space for quite a long time as an integrated partner. So that one continued to kind of rise as like, okay, that seems to be pretty well known. Also, a number of the districts that we talked to ended up giving us feedback on that, saying that this is largely what they have too. In fact, at the last board meeting, some of the districts that were mentioned, that's the product they're using. So the projected cost in this was really based upon implementation. So this is the hard part about the decision, right? So we kind of put together 3 potential implementations. Implementation 1 is what we're calling is the vendor recommended implementation. So and a vape sensor, if you were to use Halo, is a 12-foot by 12-foot square, but if you cube it, it's 8 feet high. So that is its recommended space. So that's what they can say that will sense vapor if it's installed with that level of density, right? So once you grab the square footage then and the height, or basically of all of the different rooms in which we wanted to install those, it starts to become a large one if you go with the vendor recommended coverage, right? So that's there. Another part of the recommendation is to co-locate cameras with it. So for example, if a sensor goes off in a particular bathroom, you know that there must be a camera pointing at the exterior of that bathroom so that you know when someone walks out there. We don't have that in all of our cases, so we would have to install a number of different cameras to make sure that there's an easy way to identify an individual before they turn one way or the other. Because when we did put the camera system in, that was not our first goal, but we do have them in a lot of places. So there would be some that we'd have to do. The integration with the security system, meaning that if the sensor goes off, then the camera is actually bookmarked. So when the administrator goes back, they actually receive that notification. Then when they go into the camera system, literally there's a little bookmark on the actual camera. So when you click on it, we'll rewind you to that exact spot when the sensor went off to be able to go in. Pretty reasonably simple situation there. Another recommendation is to have cloud management. So in our situation, if we were to go with the recommended vendor coverage, that would be 54 sensors in this case, at a minimum at this point in time. And that would be, again, just looking at the square footage of the spaces and knowing that there's a 12 by 12 by 8 coverage, right? And so cloud management, that puts 54 devices in there. Without that, you have individual IP addresses, individual passwords, and individual updates on each individual sensor if you need to do that. So some of the districts we talked to, when we asked them these questions, we haven't really thought about that. We just kind of put them in right now. So it's kind of like, that's sort of important though, because in 2 years when that has to happen, I'm just curious. Well, we're doing a smaller integration. We'll get to that point. So it's kind of hard. So anyway, that's implementation 1. So you see the price tag is pretty large for implementation 1. That's kind of, you have everything exactly the way you want it. Implementation 2 would be that still that same recommended coverage per square footage, and then the co-location of cameras, and then the integration of security system. And if you remove the cloud management part of it, which means that anytime that you want to, again, update firmware on those, or even just change the sensor sensitivity. So we actually have one that we got from one of these companies, and they sent it up here, and so we configured it, and we put it into our security system, tested it out a little bit. So there's sensitivities for 8 different types of sensors. So you have to be able to change those depending on the size of the room and where they're located. Same thing with our downstairs or inside in the locker rooms. We really would have to put all of those on installation poles in order to be able to reach there, because the height is so high that you could vape right underneath it if it was actually in the ceiling at this point. It wouldn't catch it. It's too far away. So we'd have to kind of consider that. Implementation 3 is sort of like, well, what do you really want? So that's kind of out there, right? So it would be targeted coverage. When I say that, means that we'd have to decide which are the areas that we want to cover the most, right? There would be no integration with security system, no cloud management. You could get it for a lot cheaper than those price tags. It would come with what is a pretty clear goal as to what you want to have, right? One of the things we were trying to look into is like, do they have wireless vape sensors at all, so that we could like move them from like, we just take 10 of them over here and then put them in this area. I haven't been able to find anything that is like that. It's possible that it exists. We might need to do some more research if that's the case. But my point in that being is that they need to have a switch attached to them. So they have to have power somewhere. And so they have to be attached back to a switch. One of the costs I did not put in there because I didn't have it until this morning was that if we did go with either implementation 1 or 2, we would need more switches, and that would be about $10,000 extra to put in more PoE switches because those need power from somewhere, right? So with the number of the cameras that we would have to add and that, we would require about $10,000 for the switches. So we have some options, but that's kind of the reality of it at this point. So I think Stuart's going to go through the.
Yeah, you bet. So, I mean, that number is just for the high school, right? So it's pretty substantial, right? So I would say, and obviously, working in conjunction with the work that was done this last spring and summer with the vape committee, as well as, you know, since we were given this charge back in August. We have sought and received feedback from over 20 districts as a group, between Corey's connections with those in the IT realm, and then phone calls made by members of the group, and also just the survey that we sent out. So ASA is our professional administrative organization. They have a Google group, and Danny helped create a survey that we then posted on that ASA forum. And that feedback is there for you to take a look at. It's in that document, and this document with some of the individual responses. But overall, that survey that was posted, I think we had was it 18? Does that sound right? 12 or I can't remember the total numbers. I don't know, 18, I thought, something like that. Yeah. Survey feedback was mixed results. So most implementations that we saw, the majority were within like the last 2 to 3 years. So we're kind of getting to that point where they're going to make some updates, and I'm guessing they probably use some of their ESSER money potentially to do some of this. Some of the things that came up that were of concern, and the things that were raised from that forum, just the number of false positives they were dealing with. The ability to identify students, that was a key part of it. So you have a group of students that are in a bathroom, the vape sensor goes off, you know, 7 students, and there's 1 student that has a device. Going through and searching those other 6 and having to have those phone calls might not be the most pleasant thing, right? But it's also, I think it makes things a little bit challenging from just trying to monitor and make sure that we're doing our due diligence. One of the responses actually said, well, yeah, when it goes off, if we have time to address it. So there's also that piece of it too. Like, it was kind of a little bit, it was interesting, just that response. IT integration was another thing. Somebody had mentioned on there that they had tried them, they took them out because they totally missed the boat when it came to making sure that they were integrated with their IT. And then also there was a tapering off that a number of people indicated. And so the question becomes at that point, is there a change? Is there a true change of behavior? Are we seeing students changing their behavior in the sense of, are they not vaping at school, or are they maybe finding workarounds? You know, that they're, somebody already mentioned that there are devices that students can buy that can kind of help mask the odor. So those are all things that we're kind of telling from that forum. The other thing that we also had, I mentioned that we had some conversations with some similar schools. When I say similar schools that are around our size, one school had actually ran a pilot with them, and they chose to remove the vape sensors. And the reasoning for that, and this was telling, they said, you know, it came down to the issue that we talked about, that was talked about in that forum. Searching students was absolutely a massive challenge for them, and trying to manage that. And then having some really upset parents be called and say, yeah, I needed a search of your child because there were 5 students that were in the bathroom. The other big thing that really stuck out to me, they said there was false positives, and most importantly, they said that in that time that they had those sensors, they said they found that they were still getting more students, more vape issues resolved, with students reporting over, that they saw something in the bathroom and then addressing the issue, as opposed to just relying on the vape sensor to identify students that were using vapes in the bathroom, right? The other student, or the other school that we spoke to currently has them in use. They've also, though, seen a significant drop off of alerts, and that to like once every 3 to 4 weeks. I know we've talked to them extensively, whether it's myself having some small conversations and Corey having some conversations. That also leads me to kind of wonder, we talk about the importance of making sure that we're following the manufacturer guidelines. So, I mean, is this a situation where they've invested enough money to have them located in the correct areas and making sure that their spacing is appropriate? So,
the only thing I'd add to that is that they're, when I talk to them as well, their SRO, who is assigned only to the high school, is responsible for maintaining and updating all of their firmware. And primarily, like the primary person who investigated all of that. I can tell you with certainty that having 4 schools and only 50% of my time, at this, I mean, it's more during the school year, but I can't do that. Like, there's no way that I could. Number one, I'm not IT smart enough. But number 2, I would not have enough time in the day to cover all of the schools and be responsible for the vape sensors.
In that particular case, they don't have the integration yet. They're trying to do that. Not all of their bathrooms are covered yet. So like there's some things that when you look at the cost of what was spent, it's difficult to determine if that's going to actually be their total cost of ownership because it's not done yet.
Mm-hmm. So. And the other thing is too, like when we talk about like if it's in certain areas, moving them around or whatever the case, as I know some schools talked about that, you worry like, it's just a matter of how long for students can figure out like, hey, they're there, let's go someplace else, right? If they're choosing to participate in that. Last thing I have on here is we did some local research as well. So we actually got a Halo vape sensor. Corey and Brandon were able to configure it, or not configure it. They did not configure it at all. We
just did the integration. We didn't do any. So like I get a noise sensor. I don't know how many times we get those. Probably 4 or 5 times a day. I get notifications that it's really loud. So that's because we haven't done anything with it yet. We just plugged it in and basically attached it to our camera system so that it's tied to a camera, and so that when a sensor goes off, you can see what it would look like as far as the sensor on the one side and the camera activity on the other side. We just wanted to get an idea of what that would look like having it integrated. So it seems as if I guess you could install them with manufacturer sensitivities and that kind of thing, but knowing the different sizes of our spaces and that kind of thing, I can't imagine that one would be good in a locker room and then also be good in a very tiny bathroom. I'm not sure how those will how that will go.
All right, so we did some local research in that.
And one last thing. So you can't buy those sensors anymore because Halo just put out a brand new one, so I have to get this entire project recoded because those other ones aren't available anymore. It's just something to mention. Just found that out the day that I put those numbers in the slide.
So we never ever tried them out yet.
We did, yes. We have one. Yes.
In a bathroom.
We tried one. Part of our local research was to test the vaping as well. So.
Yes, if it can be perfectly clear, we had Jamie help us out and actually blow vapor into it from different distances to see how well it would trip that. We did not put any inside of bathrooms, at least when we were talking, I kind of felt like that was above the scope of what we talked about last time. Before we would put anything in a bathroom, we felt we wanted to have this meeting first. But yes, so we have one that's local. We did get it to finally trip the sensor, and it is actually sending us, like I said, noise notifications and that kind of thing at the moment. So.
All right. So I'll let Danny and Jamie speak about some potential alternative solutions as well that we had talked about as a group. We talked
Did
about,
you, sorry, just 1 second. Stuart, you were mentioning something about local research. Were you done on that?
yeah, that's what that was, that was
Okay.
about. So we got, Corey and Brandon helped us get that Halo device up to go. So,
Okay.
absolutely. Yep.
So we talked about some of this at the last meeting, but like one of the biggest things that has to happen is having some parent education. Several times when we catch a student that's been vaping, their parents have no idea, and sometimes they have no idea what a vape even looks like. And so having some, some educational for parents would be really important. And then we also talked the last time about the digital pass system, being able to know who's in the hallway at certain times and being able to limit, different control, knowing that when a paper dispenser gets broken on third hour, knowing exactly who was in the bathrooms at that time, to be able to kind of monitor those kind of things. So those two are important, but one other idea that Jamie's going to present.
So, what I like to call culture cash, just because it sounds a little bit better than the Quick 50 program. Quick 50 is primarily what most of you would recognize, but that denotes a flat $50, and that's largely a law enforcement only program or managed program. But we talked about ways that if people are reporting to us that student buy-in, right, student reports is the most effective way for us to eliminate this problem, what can we do to incentivize our students to report it? And we talked to a couple different districts that use a similar program. John Donks actually said that Seymour used it when he was there, and it was really effective for them. So we talked about different ways that we could manage it. I know that Dr. Hess and my chief both agreed that they thought the SRO should manage it if you were to do something like this. And the primary purpose for that not only is the allocation of the money, I think, by where you guys aren't in control of maybe the names that it's being allocated to, but there's still some responsibility and accountability for it, where if people wanted to look hard enough, that it's being documented, but also that we are getting students to buy into the culture of our school. So for instance, $20 for results, and you only give it if it's proven accurate, right? We don't hand out $20 bills just for a tip. It's got to be proven to be accurate information before somebody gets paid out for it. And it's really open to whatever we want to do with it. So we talked about possibly $20 cash for nicotine products when we have kids etching things they shouldn't be etching into our lockers or the outside of the lockers. So that'd be property damage, and $50 for tips involving criminal activity or school safety matters. And part of the reason we were talking about that is we had something significant at the middle school. And I kind of looked at John that morning and said, boy, it'd sure be nice to give these girls something other than a king size candy bar for quickly reporting something that was of a significant criminal issue to the school. So we think that $5,000 to $10,000 would actually span several years, and that the perk of that is it can encompass all of the schools. So it's not just going to be $150,000, $185,000 for the high school. It's going to be something that we can institute school-wide or district-wide. So that way it kind of compounds and builds on the culture of the district as a whole as they age through. Middle schoolers already like to tell on each other still, right? So, and then we see a drastic drop as they age through middle school in terms of wanting to do the right thing. So we can have all the conversations in the world until we're blue in the face about right is right and wrong is wrong. But I think if we were to incentivize them, a lot of our kids have a lot of knowledge that they keep in because they don't want to get in trouble. And I think if they were rewarded for those tips, that we would see a big impact in the schools. So we just wanted to come up with a different alternative solution that maybe didn't cost $185,000. I know that when we had our initial group conversations with the board members and the parents, we were all kind of operating under, and myself included, like I was a huge, like, yeah, let's do it, right? I had no idea, you know, the technical issues, the overall cost can be very low if we're not gonna implement it the way that we should. So obviously this is your decision, but we wanted to come up with something that we thought could improve the culture of the school as a whole and not just clean up the paraphernalia.
Is there any concerns with kids with retribution on those who give a lead as to someone doing something wrong? Or is it kind of like an anonymous thing, like I see Carrie doing something wrong and I go tell on Carrie and
Is Carrie gonna find out?
how's Carrie
How
gonna
does
find out
that-
that Brian told on Carrie?
Yeah, so I mean, there's always a risk of that with children because they talk to their friends and their friends talk to friends. And you're going to have some of that stuff leak just because they're opening their mouths. But one of the perks of having the SRO maintain the program is that it can be maintained by me, who routinely works with confidential informants. We can assign them a number, so that way anything that would come to you in terms of a report would have a number attached to it instead of initials or names. I have a lot of success with that in other areas of my job, so I'm not necessarily worried about that as far as we are concerned. Your biggest risk with that is gonna be kids flashing their cash to other kids. And so that's something that we, you know, as part of the program, that we have those kinds of conversations. But
Yeah, and I think too, how we roll it out, we'll roll it out, that would be part of our conversation up front.
yeah, absolutely.
So, so I just also want to point out that when we talk about the digital pass system, when we talk about those types of things, that is, the digital pass piece is specific to the high school. I know the middle school currently has a pass system that they are finding to be very effective for them. We have adopted something like that right now, that's similar at the high school. But just looking at the volume of kids, the building, that would be something that we would recommend solely for the high school right now, as we're the ones that are bringing that forward. So, all right, so recommendations. So I think wanting to just be mindful of you know, what's our desired outcome, right? Our desired outcome, I think we're all in agreement that we don't want our students vaping in school, right? And thinking about being on purpose with that, you know, looking at the recommendations that are the kind of the alternatives that we have, thinking about the investment and really my concern, one of them is just the long-term effects of that investment and how, I mean, if we're hearing that people put them in and had a lot of hits in the first, you know, 3 weeks, and then all of a sudden it died down like once every 3 to 4 weeks, I'm not sure if that changed the behavior that where students were stopping or it ceased, or if it was as much of maybe finding workarounds to not get themselves in that position of where they're going to be getting called in the office. So it's a deterrent, but it may not address the culture. So right now, I think an investment in the vape centers would be just that. It would not necessarily help our students when it comes to identifying things that they see that are not appropriate. So that's not to say that at some point in the future it wouldn't come back and say, hey, we need this at this time, right? But I think right now, I think we would recommend like investing in alternative solutions, and let's try those first before spending close to $200,000 on something that we don't even know will even work. All right, a year from now or 6 months from now. And so we think that that $5,000 initial investment for the Fast 50 or the culture cash would be appropriate, and then continuing to educate our students and families. And again, I just want to point out that these solutions right now, all the stuff that we talked about is, you know, recommendations right now that are understood to be for the high school, and that things may look a little bit different at OFMS. They would still have the culture cash as part of the district piece, but some of the things that we talked about again would be primarily for the high school. So,
I have a
questions?
question.
Yeah.
Couple.
Yeah.
So my first question, so what about the middle school hall passes have you currently adopted? And then when we were on the vaping committee earlier in the fall, there was some discussion about the proposed system and how it works. So if you could just speak to that.
Sure,
a
you're
little
talking
bit
about the
more.
electronic system?
Yeah, so both. So like what you've instituted already this year and then
So-
the electronic system.
So we're using like a yellow paper pass system. So kids have to get teacher signature and there's a documentation. So just to kind of go back, I'll try to say this quickly, but like, we went away from the past booklets because they were calendars. Kids weren't really using them. We have Chromebooks. Kids use everything technology. So we had this past booklet that really wasn't being used except for that pass in the very end. And so a couple of years ago, we went to the orange passes. Kids always had passes in the hallway. But there was no documentation of how many times a kid could get a pass every single hour of the day. There was really no documentation of that other than that orange pass that was probably thrown away in the garbage. And so we went to a sheet of paper that's yellow now that they have to be signed out. And so there's documentation of every time that kid leaves. Unless, of course, they lose that sheet.
And so it's their own yellow sheet that they
Each
carry with
kid has
them?
their own yellow sheet. So it's similar to what the middle school uses, the agenda. And our freshmen actually use the agenda as well. We bought agendas for the freshmen, but the rest of our building, we didn't get agendas for. So freshmen are using the agenda and we sign out. And so we have that documentation. So if so-and-so's leaving class too many times, we can go back and document, here, you've left this many times, that sort of thing.
Who's tracking that?
Reactive. It's only tracked if there's an issue. So that would be me mostly.
So
But we're not like, they're not like turning them in and saying, okay, we're looking through them. But but teachers can go, hey, Susie's having a lot of passes. Can you take a look at her pass sheet?
Okay.
Okay, and I also tell teachers, like, before they get to the bottom of that pass sheet, let me know that it's coming near the end, so I call them down and take a look at it before it's gone, right? And so it works. I think it's kind of controlled our hallways quite a bit. At the end of last year, we started that in April, and what we started with this year. The difference in the digital hall pass is it's digital. So every time a student leaves, they're gonna sign out on their Chromebook, approved by a teacher. They turn their Chromebook around, and if it's a bathroom pass and it's got 7 minutes, it'll count down the 7 minutes. So a teacher can go on about their day and teach, and they don't have to worry about when that kid comes back because the computer is doing that. And then if the kid comes back late, it'll say that. And so that's also that's documented in a spreadsheet that I'll be able to monitor.
Okay, so then, and that would give you live notification as to who's out of the classroom at that.
So I have an issue in a bathroom, I can go back and look and say who was in the hallway at 10 o'clock this morning. And so that'll give you easy access to that. I can also, if I know that I have 2 students that are meeting up in the bathroom all the time, they can be in 2 separate classes and text each other and go, hey, let's meet up in the bathroom. They're doing it every day. I can also eliminate them from having a pass at the very same time. They can both still get passes, but they won't be able to go at the same time.
Sure.
And so there's that ability in that program as well.
So how would you do that? Because if they text you,
That's
go
just,
ahead.
You plug them into the
I plug that
program.
into the program, like, so the first time they do it, probably I gotta know anything, right? So they get away with it. But if it's a repeated offense that continues to happen, I can go into the system and say, Chad and Danny can't be in the hallway at the same time during class period.
We can do that at the onset also. So it's like a block list. So a conflict list. Any kids that we know are already doing that, because those yellow sheets don't eliminate that.
Right.
You know, Mr.
Yeah.
Taylor doesn't know who Mr. Heisel is letting out and at what time, because they have no means of communicating with that. So the computer or the program would essentially, if we have people on that list, prohibit them from being able to even leave the classroom on that pass without, at the same time as each other. I mean, they could get up and leave without permission, but then that's a whole separate issue, obviously.
Right.
And again, I say that that's something that we're looking at just at the high school level.
And
That's
just
a possibility.
Yeah, but just like, we haven't implemented that yet, because when I went to work with the company, they said, well, we have some things that are under construction right now, so they wouldn't give us a pilot program to use.
Okay.
And I said, so well, let's wait until you get that figured out, and then we'll come back and talk again, so.
That was gonna be my question. Corey, have you looked at, I would imagine that the integration of this pass system is highly less of a problem than the vape sensors, but have you looked at the integration of that to all the Chromebooks at the high school and the amount of time required? Like, is that pretty extensive?
Minimally, but from what I understand, it uses roster, like a one roster. There's multiple programs that can do this, but as far as I understand, it uses what's called a one roster API, which is great. So that's
Okay.
something that we're using to roster. I mean, we roster hundreds of programs because they come from Skyward. So essentially, if the information is accurate in the student information system, there's usually systems that we can use to roster them out. We have a program called ClassLink that does a lot of this stuff. And so if the company's registered with ClassLink, it's like ridiculously easy. If they're not, we can still use an option where Skyward, we use a Skybuild or something like that. Usually that's not too bad. And then after that, you automate the task and so on, and you have it run overnight multiple times. So when there's new kids, it just automates their entry into whatever that program X, whatever it would be. So,
Okay.
And we use a program now called Ed Efficiency for our Panther Flex Time. And I think that's the reason why they're under construction now, because I believe this company is trying to become a main competitor for that. So they want to be able to do the hall pass system and also manage like a flex schedule. So, but again, I would say again, for us at the high school level, it's probably a little bit more. It's just because of the number of kids that we have leaving for sports, the number of activities that we have going on during the day. That is something that we would continue to examine and again, use in lieu of as an alternative. So,
How many kids did you guys catch already this year?
We have had 2 so far at the high school.
2.
Jamie, is that correct? Yeah.
Probably, yeah. I would have said 5
I was thinking
overall, including one in summer school.
I did not count some of those.
Yeah. So I just have a couple comments.
Yeah.
So culture change takes a lot of time.
Mhm.
Okay. We have what I would consider a pretty 911 emergency at this point. We have 76% of our students saying that there is a vaping problem in our school. We have kids that won't go to the bathroom because they don't want to get caught with kids that are vaping inside of the bathroom. So we have to do something.
Yeah.
And we have to do something that's going to, in my opinion, have an immediate impact. So not moving forward with vape sensors, I'm not sure that I'm able to say I'm okay with that.
Well, I just want to make sure that I reiterate. So I'm not saying that wouldn't be a part of it, that's not on the table in the future, right? I'm not saying that. And what I'm saying is, I think we can try some alternatives because I'll also say this, I think the longer these things stay in place, we're going to be able to find out more information on what's the best use of them. I go back to, I don't know, saying that there's an issue with that survey that went on, I think it was health class last year with the numbers, right?
April
right?
of 23.
So, I mean, I don't, when I talked to the one principal, they said every 3 to 4 weeks. Well, we were only in school for about 8 weeks at the time I talked to them, right?
Right.
So that means they only had about 2 hits.
But wouldn't you expect that to be the case? Like that hits would go down? I mean, sensors are installed. A couple kids get caught. I mean,
You're gonna have a very busy month or 2 when they first get installed. And yes, you should expect them to go down over time.
And so the question I have though, when I see all this stuff, I'm sorry, but the question I have is that really changing a behavior that we're not doing this in school, or is it changing the avenue that we're taking to do it someplace? We're just going someplace else.
That was what my question. That was where my question was going to lead. Was in any of these schools that you've talked to, and by the way, thank you for doing all the work that you're doing on this. Right, this is a complex problem.
Yeah,
it's not easy to solve. It's easy for us to probably sit here and have our opinions, but some of us have probably done a bunch of research. Some of us maybe haven't. But it takes a committee looking at it to kind of come up with what the recommendation is, and I applaud you guys in doing that.
So who changed that committee anyway?
Who changed the committee?
Yeah, because I know there's 4 people that never got an invite with your meetings.
Nobody changed the committee. We were told to do it as an administrative team. So we.
By who?
Well,
By
When we-
us,
when-
when we
when
voted
we had
on
our-
it in August or
meeting.
September.
But that, no, we directed the committee that had already
On there.
been formed.
That wasn't my understanding, was it was just the.
I thought it was.
I wanna just,
Sorry,
I wanna
but
go
yeah,
back to
go
my,
ahead.
I wanna go back to my question. So the schools with sensors, do they believe that their problem in the school of vaping has actually gone down? Or that kids are just finding different places, locations? I know there's sensors now in locker rooms, bathrooms, I'm just gonna do it at other like, has anyone?
It was
did they get-
mixed,
did they
it
get
was
feedback
mixed
on
in that result. So some people would say, you know, that they do it, they're a good thing, and others would say, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, they believe that students are finding, their answer is that they believe that they're seeing a decrease in the number of hits because students are finding a way around it, around the sensors, you know.
Okay.
But have they caught them not using, do you know what I mean? How do we know that? Like that's an assumption?
Yeah,
But how do
absolutely, yeah,
we-
it's all, absolutely, right, so. And again, just to go back to your point, Carrie, do I think that we would ever have a point in time where we would maybe consider these? I'm not saying that we wouldn't, right? My point is, like, when I see that amount of investment and just, I guess, even to say that people have it for 2 or 3 years, what's it gonna look like after they have it for 4 years, 5 years? I think more time is on our side. I think there are things we can do right now to address this. And then if all of a sudden, like, you know, we go with these alternatives and we're finding that we come back and, a year from now and we do another survey and it still is a major issue, well, then we have to start looking at more ways to ratchet it up, right? I just, I see there being a lot of potential in ways that we can address it, right? And creating that culture of students seeing something and saying something and reporting it, right?
And then being afraid of their punishment when they do get caught.
What's that?
That has to be a part of it too.
Absolutely.
Is that, when they do get caught, ensuring that the punishment is followed up with and consequences are severe enough where they're not
Absolutely.
going to do it again and they're gonna learn from their friends that they're not gonna come do that again. I think that has to be a part of our recommendation too, is having that documented as to what we're gonna do for punishment. And for us to support you guys in that situation.
And I don't think it should be lost that by changing our pass system last April, and what we've seen at the start of this year, I believe has already made an improvement. I'm not naive enough to think that vaping is not happening in our school.
Right.
But I believe it is better at this point than it was last November at this point, just because of that one move.
Right.
I'm not a building administrator, but I've just, and reading some of the data and that kind of thing, it felt to me like certain things like these recommendations would largely have to be in place regardless of whether or not you put in sensors.
Right.
Because without them, 7 kids go to a bathroom, sensor goes off, integrated security system tells you that it went off, it bookmarks the camera for you, you look at the camera, 7 kids come out, which one did it? At that point in time, you don't have a pass system too that kind of helps you figure out, like, those ones shouldn't be in the bathroom regardless together. I know that that's a bad situation. So it will not necessarily give you the situation, it won't tell you the answer. It certainly will tell you, it'll give you a hint. Like, there's something happened here.
But of course, a pass system doesn't do anything on your normal breaks when you've got 3 to 5 minutes between classes, right?
It doesn't, but if I walk into a bathroom and I see Danny Smith in there and I see that he's doing something he's not supposed to be doing, and I go and talk to Jamie Kuhn shortly thereafter, and that gets reported because that's part of our, that's what we're trying to promote. That's where that culture cache would come.
Well, and catching them is where that, it says also on here, the metal detector wand. So it's not out yet, right? Legal didn't finish so we came up with a guideline. I don't necessarily want to call it a policy yet or whatever, but a procedural guideline for what we would do with that metal detector wand. and how we would utilize it. And the restrictions that we would need to follow to make sure that we're not, infringing on people's
Privacy.
sense of security or their rights to privacy and things of that nature. I know we finished our end of it and we're just fine tuning it with legal right now. So I don't think we can do any of that if we don't have the means of figuring out who has it on them if there are 5 people in a bathroom together. And maybe multiple people have it on them. But a lot of these things, I think, need to be used together in order to solve the overall problem and the bigger picture with it. So is that next month that these things are coming? Okay, so you should have something soon from legal, or as soon as it comes through, for you guys to make a determination on whether or not you want to do that. And none of us are trying to say, don't do what I mean, you guys are in charge of the money. When we looked at it and the amount of like things on his plate and the amount of things is the payout worth the investment at this point when there are less expensive things that we could try to also curb the problem? That's more or less what we were trying to convey to you guys. Obviously, whatever you do, we're going to utilize. Like that's part of what we do. Is
Jamie, do you have anybody coming to you right now and ratting people out?
Yeah.
Do you? Okay.
Yep.
We call it reporting.
I did cringe a little.
I don't
said
really like
that.
word stitching or keyboard report things. That's funny.
Jamie, do we still do, or I know in the past, or, we've done it a little bit here or there, I think, and, but like, again, I'm not suggesting that dogs could figure this out, but do we do dog locker checks at all throughout the year?
Yeah,
do
so
you
we
think that-
typically do 2.
And do you think that has an impact on kids going, we have no idea when that might happen? Is that a natural deterrent? And the reason I'm asking, let me take it one step forward, is like, what keeps you from doing some random searches with the wand? If you get the wand, we have the legal approval, and you're able to do random searches when you want.
I think,
does there have to be a probable reason why to random
so
search
we
somebody with
typically
the
use
wand?
reasonable suspicion.
Okay.
We could absolutely do a randomized, but I would suggest that specifically be written into the guidelines and the policy, because people are gonna get far more aggravated or up in arms, I guess, with a random selection than we are. I mean, we've done that in the past in terms of it's probably been 3 or 4 years, but I used to randomly PBT people that are coming into dances. So I pick 1 out of every 10, 1 out of every 12, and every single time a belligerent parent came to the school, like super upset that their kid got selected. Now, if we did more of that, some of that would eventually dissipate, because people, just like truck drivers, you get a lottery system and you get pulled. I think we could do that, though. That's one of the things we discussed in our drug policy too. So when we were talking about going to saliva testing instead of urine screening, it's currently written in our drug policy that we can do things and we could adapt it to include stuff like that. So, and that would include things other than, do I think dogs are effective for nicotine? No. You would have to train dogs.
And I wasn't
for that,
suggesting,
but-
I wasn't suggesting the dog thing. I was just saying the deterrent, the mental psyche of going, we do have random checks every once in a while when a dog comes in. I'm not gonna keep
Yeah.
marijuana in my locker at school because I'm concerned about that happening,
Yeah, I
right?
think
How
it
do
all
you-
just creates and sends a message that you're concerned about this and that we take it seriously and that.
Yeah, I mean, like I think of, if I'm a kid in school and I'm vaping, and I know there's sensors. The good news is the kids that are not going to the bathroom or have concerns about it right now becomes a safe place. I think there's the advantage of that. But if I'm vaping in school and I know there's sensors, I'm gonna find a different place to do it or a way around it or whatever. And I'm gonna continue to do it. If I know that I'm being randomly searched or someone can tell on me or whatever else, it creates bigger, I think, deterrent than simply just those discrete locations. That's just where I kind of land on it. I do think it helps with the bathroom concern
Sure.
or locker room concerns and that aspect of it, certainly. So that was why I was asking about the ability to randomly wand every once in a while.
I don't know that we would want to, I think we could do some more thoughts on that. I'm not sure about random, but I hear what you're saying, like, or just opening up a bank of lockers sometimes and see if there's anything in plain view.
Yes.
That's
Mhm.
probably a little more realistic and reasonable. So.
And we do have access, I mean, to the dogs at any time, right? I mean, we can.
Yes
do
and
that.
no, we have to schedule it, but yeah.
Sure,
Yeah, they won't say no to us.
right, yeah.
Other questions?
Other questions?
So do you think they're, when kids snitch on them or report?
Thanks, Ken. Report,
yeah. You don't, if they find out, other kids find out, you don't think there's any bullying going on?
I think that's where we rely on Jamie and how we set it up to make sure that it's a way that, we do everything we can to protect those students, right?
I mean, we probably had 20 last year, and I don't recall of anybody getting, or not that it didn't happen, but it didn't come back to us that it was happening. I don't recall any issues as a result of the ones that were reported last year.
So you had 20 people come forward, report that there were issues.
That's
and
an
then-
estimate, but yeah, we had a
Right.
lot last year.
Yeah. And they got a candy bar.
Not even most of them.
So if you were to implement at least that initial recommendation, the fast 50, how long do you think it would take before I mean, do you need 6 months? Do you need 3 months? Do you need a month? Do you need, like, to where you say, all right, I can see this is starting to, and I realize the culture shift takes time, but how long?
Well, I think part of it's when you implement it, right? If we go forward with that, if we implement it and how we do as far as educating our students about that, our families about that. My hunch is that we would be able to see within, I would say by the end of the school year for sure, be able to come back with some data that shows like, here's how many situations that we've had that were reported.
How long would it take you to implement?
I don't know, I think it wouldn't take us very long.
Couple weeks.
Yeah, I mean.
I think that you would want to do a minimum of 3 months in terms of trying to educate, see kids actually believe that they're gonna get paid out. I think you'd want to do a minimum of 3, but yeah, I don't think it would take us very long to implement the program. It's just a matter of us putting the pen to paper and getting it approved before it goes out.
Is this something that we could have them bring back for that special meeting in the beginning of December? Could we add this to that if we give them 2 weeks to work on it? I guess there's holiday in there though.
For
like a final plan, like these are the steps. This is like
For the
ABC.
implementation of the benefit, I think culture cash thing, I think we could hammer it out. Yeah, it's doable.
I guess
We could just bring it to the regular board meeting, right?
yeah, that's a month away though.
Yeah.
That means we have to wait a month.
Right. Another month.
When is the board meeting? Is it the last?
The
month?
first, typically it's the second Monday of the month, but there is potentially a special meeting,
Is that
the
November?
first week of December.
We would be ready by that time. I'm speaking for everybody right now, but I don't
think it's
see it
really,
being a
I think
problem.
we'd have the policies done that we're looking at. I think we'd have all of that done by then.
So
Yeah,
that-
and then we have to make sure it matched our policy too. I'm guessing that that's something that we have to be brought up at that point anyway.
So then at that point, you're saying that that's when we would vote on whether or not to adopt the recommendation? Because I think this is under old business, so they're looking for some action.
Yeah, I think we could. So
Table it till that.
Table it until.
we could table it until then, but I mean, I think. Is there any other questions or comments on it? I think there's broad board support to do something, right? We have to do something. And I think there's support to do vape sensors, if I'm listening to some, and I think there's support to, like, we respect you guys as a committee coming back and saying, hey, this is what we'd like to do. My sense is, someone would have to make a motion and vote, is that, if we go along with the recommendation, we'd want to see some tangible results, and that it does something in a pretty, A, it's implemented pretty quick, and then that B, you're able to come back and say, hey, the numbers last year look like this. This is what they look like this year. Here's what we're getting for, number of reports. We think it's working, and or it's starting to see some progress, and we can make a decision. Maybe we wait 3 months and see what the results are, and then we decide. I mean, whether we put in vape sensors, say do it now, there's some lead time, and whether we say we do it now in March or April, there's some lead time.
I think we have to not only get their input on whether or not it's working, but we have to get the student input on whether or not it's working. And I think that data is just as important, because
absolutely.
Yeah, maybe we can have Mr. Soleric do a little survey like he did.
Well, when did we take the YRBS last? Was that last year? We took it?
Oh, just one other.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. One other quick question. How did you guys come up with the $5,000 initial investment? Is that for both the Fast 50 and the hall pass?
Honestly, we thought for the Fast, we were throwing numbers around, and I think somebody said $5,000, and it's like, I don't think it would necessarily have to be that much. I think if we put $5,000 in there, I think we would be covered probably for the next 4 or 5 years. Because my hunch is that if we have a number of students using it, it's not going to take all $5,000 to kind of create that culture that we just don't do that here.
I mean, listen, there's a point where that dollar amount is a great enough incentive that it will get done.
Yeah.
Whether it's $20, $50, $100, or $1,000 for an accurate snitch.
Yeah.
Right?
Report.
Sorry.
That just killed me.
Sorry. I'm just saying, if you installed $185,000, let's say, and there's ongoing costs, and there's the cost of Corey's team continuing to keep it updated and all that. I mean, if the dollar amount needs to be $100 or something, that it's meaningful that the kids are actually going to do it. Don't be afraid to think about that.
Which isn't the little update itself. That's information I got.
If it's fully integrated, it will.
Yeah.
If we don't do any integration, we have to do it manually.
I want to just thank Corey too. I mean, he presented a little bit here, but he did a ton, and his whole team, granted, everybody did a ton of work with our IT team to really understand the scope and did a ton of homework as far as reaching out to the people, and because that's ultimately the brains behind all of this, right? Like they understand all the intricacies of us. I really appreciate all of that they did. All right, so
the need for adequate consequences to get the attention of these kids was talked about. Do we currently have that in place, or does that need to be?
Depends on the kid. I mean, the consequences are they get a ticket of how much dollars?
$187 was your first offense for possession of a vape.
Okay.
We a lot of times just do the suspension and focus on educational pieces initially if it's their first time.
And we're talking
we could
nicotine,
certainly,
right?
We're
talking about nicotine right now.
Yeah.
We're not talking about THC is a different.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's a whole different
THC
ball
is a
of
much
wax, right?
bigger bird.
There was some.
THC is an automatic.
Yeah.
Yeah, THC is an automatic $366 for the actual THC, and then if there's paraphernalia along with it, another $500 for the city. Those are an automatic. I don't have, I mean, I do, but I don't use discretion on those. With nicotine, sometimes we do, depending on what's going on in the kid's life and whether or not it's a coping mechanism for bigger issues. I mean, it's all individual. We could certainly, I mean, you could tell me you want every single one ticketed, and then every single one will start at 187 and then it goes up to 250 and it can keep going up from there.
I think that's something that needs to happen.
So not, yeah, so the consequence or potential consequences are not an issue. I mean, they're.
Because if they know.
stringent.
I believe.
Well, and it's an auto 2-day suspension in school for, I mean, everybody gets an in-school suspension out of it regardless of the citation. So we balance a lot of times when we're working with these kids. We balance, like, my job isn't just punishment, right? It's not just to be an authoritarian. So, we consider a lot of different variables when making that decision. If somebody else makes it for me, I'm fine with that. But I can also stand behind, you know, making those decisions depending on the variables in that student's life. I would say that at least 75% of them that we give that opportunity to don't reoffend. So I think it's a valuable tool to have in our pocket, depending on whether or not we're trying to build a relationship with this kid more than anything else. That's the primary determinant in that, is if we feel that kid needs to build a trusting relationship with us for other maybe safety related reasons in their life, that discretion is helpful to me. If I don't have it, I don't have it. Like, I can tell anybody that the board says I have to.
I guess I do have a thought on that. If we're talking about spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on a device to prevent vaping, but we're not doing like the bare minimum fining. And I honestly completely understand your thought process, and I get that whole relationship piece. But it just seems like that's something that we could, because in my mind, like, maybe they wouldn't even do it to begin with then. Like, instead of allowing them to do it the one time, like, maybe they're not even gonna do it that one time, you know?
So I'll kind of like play this out, like, Sarah, so what this could look like, I'm sorry, but it could look like, I have Danny in my office right now, and it was reported that he was vaping in the bathroom, right? And so depending on what Danny's background is and how much of an issue maybe we've had in the past, or if we've suspected him for a long time, you know, we have those conversations with students. Sometimes it's a matter of, you know, there's going to be a consequence, but how severe that consequence is depends on how cooperative they are as well, right? So if this is Danny's first offense, he's never done anything wrong ever before. He's our model student. He made a mistake, and he's going to let us know that this happened. He's upfront. He's honest with us. That does have an impact at sometimes, right? If Danny's difficult and he's not coming forward, and we have to go to the measures that we need to try to get the device from him, then he's going to be receiving a ticket. It's not an automatic one way or the other. It really depends on the situation, that flexibility. And sometimes students, like Danny, would come to the office and we would talk to them, and they would report other situations, all right, that might be taking place, and being of assistance to help us find more incidents where people are not being safe. So I understand that. I understand where you're coming from. I think that discretion is something that we don't just flaunt around, that we take it very seriously. And it doesn't mean that everybody automatically gets, nobody's getting a pass per se on that first time. Sometimes it's just a matter
I
of,
would be concerned about decentivizing kids from telling the truth and being cooperative, because if you don't, I mean, sometimes with kids we get a lot of them to cooperate with us through giving them that option, like kind of the lesser of two evils, right? Something is going to happen to you, but how severe you want that depends on your level of cooperation. And like I say, yeah, that's fine, but zero tolerance can be a dangerous game to play. So,
and if it's Danny's second time in my office for the same thing, he's not. There's no opportunity at that point, right? So maybe that no longer is an option.
Do you feel like do you feel like the fine versus the suspension? I know you automatically get suspension, but does one affect an offender over the other more than you think?
Well, and that's where I said everything is kind of individualized. So I've got kids that would be happy to be suspended in school every day of the
Well,
week. if they could,
that was,
right? And so
right.
when I look at these things, and they all want to be out of school suspended because their Xbox or whatever's calling their name. I try to look at less about the punishment and more about changing the behavior. And the way to get there is different for every kid. Sometimes it's counseling. Sometimes the kids are really super addicted to it, and we have to get them hooked up with a nurse and try to figure out what they need to get help for that. I mean, it's a whole lot of different things that go on. Most of the time, the vaping is caused from other issues that's going on. And those are the things that we have to work through and help them make better decisions. So I really try to focus on all of my discipline on changing the behavior and less about the pound of flesh that I need to get.
And we've had kids that are like, whatever, I work. Like, I'll pay the ticket right now. So every juvenile citation though is a mandatory court appearance in O'Connell Falls. So, I mean, there is a level of inconvenience for them because they also have to take a parent with them. So any citation that's written has that attached to it. I would say that's probably more of a deterrent for the ones who don't care about the money. But he's right. Every kid is so different that what incentivizes one may not work for another.
All right, I think we've had a good discussion. If there's anyone wants to make a motion on any of the recommendations.
I'll throw this out there, see what happens. I move that we table this to our special meeting to give our committee the opportunity to develop that policy on the alternative on the alternatives for identifying.
When you say the committee, you're saying
That committee.
the administration
Yes.
team?
Yeah, okay.
And you're looking for that being exploring the culture cache piece?
Yes.
Specifically? Okay.
Where does the one fit in? Is that another issue and that's coming up later?
Yeah, so we've been working with Jeff Lacy. We've gone back and forth a couple times. We just need to get the final stamp of changing a few words around. That'll be ready at that same meeting.
So motion by Ken to table the discussion, to allow the committee to go back and put further plans on the alternative solution culture cache. And we're looking at doing that at potentially the next special meeting that we would have.
I'll second that.
Is that, I articulated that
Yes.
appropriately?
Yes, it
Okay.
is.
Motion by Ken, second by Emily. Open it up for discussion. So just to be clear, that's like the plan, implementation, here's the timeline.
Yeah.
Here's when we plan to have it in place, here's when we think we're gonna have results. It's basically here's the go forward. Okay.
Okay.
And I would think about, I don't think you have to worry about the dollar. I mean, if it needs to be a little higher or whatever you think it is, I'd consider that. Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Just to clarify, the August 14th minutes did reflect that the board was given administration and SRO the authority to go back and create the 3 things. So it was in the minutes that it was administration and SRO.
Okay. Thanks.
Yep.
Okay, next up, we've got the SRO agreement. So I think the SRO contract is in place, so we did that.
August
But
14th
the-
minutes, yep.
The discussion was around being able to continue discussion around dress code or the presence of a marked squad car outside the building. So Jamie, I think you were gonna, everyone on the board did receive, unfortunately, Chief Olson couldn't be here this evening. He did send out something, just kind of talking through the details of Jamie's position. Hopefully you've had a chance to take a look at that. Jamie, I don't know if you want to add some comments.
Yeah, so, as far as the squad car piece goes, I'm assigned an unmarked car. So, what I drive is what I drive, and we actually only have 2 marked cars right now. One is the assigned patrol vehicle, and the second one is the assigned K-9 specific vehicle. So, short of you guys buying a car, I guess, and putting stripes on it, I don't know that that's feasible. As far as the uniform piece goes, this is my 6th year now. And when we first started with this, Dina talked a little bit about, every once in a while maybe showing up in uniform. And I can tell you that I did that my first year a couple of times. And the reception I got was very different, even from kids who routinely would come up and talk to me. And I think it's so, I've got friends who are SROs that love wearing a uniform, and I've got ones who don't ever wear a uniform. And it's incredibly dependent on the area you're in, what the needs of that area are, and I think what the goals of the SRO program are. So anytime that we're in uniform, obviously there's a command presence. That's what we call it in policing. So you automatically have, control and command, and it's more of an authoritarian state. So how we focus the last 5-6 years, going into the 6th year, is our goals as the SRO have been identified in building rapport, setting up those relationships, making sure that kids feel comfortable. I can tell you that, I've been here, this is my 19th year of service in O'Connell Falls, and that prior to being the SRO, when I was in uniform all the time, right, I had a lot of the same contacts, maybe not as frequently with students in the schools, but I had a lot of those same contacts. And I went to the same church, and I ate at the same restaurants, and, I'd see kids in grocery stores, and largely they did not recognize me outside of uniform. So what I found since being here, and Corey kind of it's like taking a celebrity out to dinner now, right? You can't go anywhere without you having to talk to people. It's his favorite part. But I've noticed that kids see me now for me, not just the uniform. So when I go to church, there was a 3-year-old the other day that announced to everybody, "Mom, there's the police officer." I'm clearly not in uniform when I go to church. When I go to restaurants, when I go anywhere now, kids recognize me outside of the uniform for being a police officer. And they didn't do that before. And I think the reason for that is because people see the uniform more than they do the person. Now, the other side of that is the goal would be, well, maybe they would see the person more, right, if they saw the uniform more. I can tell you that we have uniforms in the schools, that it's not just me. But the other side of my job is working largely with victims of substantial crimes. It's going to be very difficult for me to sit down with one, and I've had 2 now in the last 4 days. 2 of our students at different buildings have reported sexual assaults. It's very hard for a victim of a sexual assault to report to somebody in uniform. It just is. It changes the air in the room. A lot of what I do with our students involves child abuse, things of that nature. So, and my boss kind of touched on that in his letter, that I am actually, under our policies of the police department, assigned to plain clothes. So I actually haven't even worn a uniform to court in the last 6 years. I wear a suit when I go to a trial. And it's just, I would have to change clothes to be effective in a lot of those positions if I were to have to wear a uniform. Now, I would expect that if I was assigned a patrol, that potentially I would be wearing a uniform all the time, but I'm not. So he's right, I am assigned. You guys can certainly take whatever steps you feel are appropriate. It would hinder, and I actually asked, because I was watching the last one, and I asked a couple kids throughout the days after, how would you feel if I wore a uniform to school? And not a single one of them said like, oh, that's cool. You know, your elementary kids are gonna love a cop no matter what they're wearing. Your middle school kids are gonna be 50-50, whether or not they think you're cool still, or whether or not they, like, what do kids call you now, the op, right? You're the op, so the opposition. Your high school kids want no part of it. Every single high school kid that I talked to said absolutely not. Like, we'll stop coming in your room, we'll stop talking to you. Do I think that's gonna happen? No. But I think it does present a barrier to building relationships at times.
I will say my 5-year-old, when you were in his room with the emotional support animal, when he came home, he told me a police officer was in my room in our classroom with the dog. And so he identified you as a police officer without you being in uniform, which had happened since our last conversation, Carrie. But what you talked about, that you want them to be comfortable talking to any police officer,
right?
Not just Jamie. And so I don't know if that connection is still there. He's 5, but he knew exactly who you were,
right?
Which I thought was encouraging.
And I think it helps too that, you know, the county shows up to our sporting events a lot of times. I've got a guy that's gonna be starting to mentor a kid in Abrams, who I thought needed kind of a male figure. And he's gonna be in uniform, so they do have some exposure. It's just not for me.
Yeah, so it's, I mean, I brought this up, it's not a secret that I brought it up. So it's the deterrent piece for me. The police car is a big issue for me, and I think that has to be a off-topic discussion with Chief, because having a marked squad in front of your school is much more of a deterrent than having an unmarked squad in front of your school for random acts. There isn't a person out there that can convince me of anything different. We have schools in the area that are calling and asking for their deputies to write reports in their parking lot, so they have a marked squad in their parking lot. So that part is more important to me than the uniform. So I'm pretty disappointed that that was just kind of swept under the rug and not taken too seriously. The uniform, I did bring it up that I do believe that you do a great job of creating relationships with our kids. I want those relationships to be with other police officers outside of just you too. So you have developed that. So I think that we could see a lot of benefit of kids trusting law enforcement again, because we are in a bad society at this point where law enforcement has a terrible name. And nothing's going to change that unless we change what we're doing. So creating that trust with a uniformed officer, and then that spiraling could be very beneficial. I get it. It's not feasible. That word to me is convenient. That's the same. They're synonyms. Your position is not a convenient position. You know, it's not. I get that it's not ideal. I do get that, but I think that the uniform is important. Not necessarily full uniform, not necessarily the same thing that a patrol officer has, but to, again, create that relationship between the uniform, you know, something that a police officer wears. I know detectives wear polos and tack pants, and, you know, there's a little bit more uniform to it. Yeah, I get it. I get everything that Chief is saying in his letter. But you know, we also pay for half of you. So, you know, we do want some kind of a say, and I may be on my own on this. I may be completely on my own, and that's okay. But that's where I stand on it.
So doesn't O'Connell and Siren have uniform?
They do. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're both. Yes. Yep, they're both uniformed. Yeah.
Well, I missed the discussion, last meeting that I came late to, but, when I saw it on the agenda, before I even saw the chief's letter and the recommendation that he made to the dean, I thought that, or my thought was that, for the reasons that Jamie outlined much more eloquently than I could, that I think the system we have now is much more appropriate for the work that we're looking for her to do for us. And she's been, from everything that I've seen and heard, been doing that very successfully in the relationship forming. And you know, I see her in the schools, high school and the middle school, able to converse with kids. And the impression that I have of a uniformed officer, there's going to be, for many kids, and maybe not for the right reasons, but a little bit more standoffish, not willing to approach that person in uniform. So I think that my opinion is that we maintain the policy that we have now. You know, she's got her badge on when you're in the building. She's got her gun on her hip. So there's, you know, people are obvious, but that's different. That lets people know that she's a police officer, but it's not as standoffish, I think, is the right way to put it, for many students if she was in full, compared to if she was in full uniform. On the car, unless we're ready to buy a car or decals put on a car and put in the parking lot. But there too, I think, to me, it seems like having a marked squad at a school all the time sends a wrong message. You know, that people know in the environment that we live in today that we do have protection, we do have police presence, and I think that's enough. I don't think it has to be that obvious by having this.
So can I add to that a little, like, when we started this position, we intentionally said, I'm not creating a schedule that goes out, because, and that kind of goes in line with the marked squad car. If the kids already know my car, but if you're talking random attacks, I mean, if I'm not at that school that day, it also leaves them vulnerable. So that's the whole reason that I don't have a set schedule, and I switch up what days I'm at what building. The admins have it, but I don't want people to be able to plan around, because I can't be everywhere in every building. I think if I was only at the high school, and to speak to, Suring is an assigned patrol, and Okano is an assigned patrol captain. So our roles are very different, and I get what you're saying as far as like it being convenient, and it's not meant to disrespect your opinion. It's just that it also, like, I have to use my car for surveillance. So having a marked car, I mean, and it still looks like a squad car, right? So sometimes I'm in my Jeep, and there is no easy solution other than like getting to the stage where the SRO is just an SRO, if that makes sense. And then in the summer, they're assigned to something else. And I think when we formed this, it was more or less like, hey, I don't have enough work to be a full-time detective, and they didn't have the money for a full-time detective. And you don't have the money for a full-time SRO. How can we come together to benefit both agencies? And that's what we came up with. So, I mean, clearly you're right. The time that I'm in your building, you pay me to do school-related things. So it is ultimately up to you. You know, I'm beholden to both policies. So is it preferred by me? No, because obviously it's not convenient for me to do the other side of my job. But if that's the decision you make, then I'll respect your decision. The car I don't have control over though.
I can see a curious thing with the uniform because if you think about it, you always hear bad cops, bad cop, bad cop. You have great, how to say it, the kids like you a lot. And I think that would go far if you had a uniform on to show not every cop is bad and then have more respect for cops because you built all this relationship with these kids. I mean, 95% of the kids look up to you, you know. Hopefully that carries on. And say, hey, not all the cops are bad, you know.
Other discussion?
Can you at any time be called out of your SRO position to go do something for the city?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Just one question that I have is, we brought up the whole, I understand what Chief Olson wrote and even your comments just around the challenges. And I heard some of the comments before about, the ability to maybe not wear full uniform, but is there a way to kind of bridge that gap a little bit between full-on uniform versus, not in, is there do you see any opportunity there, I guess, to maybe have a little bit more police-ish presence, but yet not full-on, traffic cop
uniform is what I
uniform?
would call that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's always
Well, something like you are now, you can have on site a Clinton Police Department. Something like that.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we need to, somebody will have to make a motion on the direction that we want to go. I don't know that has to, if that was a direction, I don't know that it would have to be a specific, thou shalt wear this, but it could probably be more of a recommendation that, the board would like to see that more, somewhat that balance of a little bit more of a uniformed presence, maybe, but understanding in your specific role, it's not capable of wearing full, traffic cop attire, I guess. So that was my only question or comment on that. Okay.
Yeah, if nobody wants to make a motion, then we'll just move on.
Yeah.
It says possible action, doesn't say have to take action.
Right. No action?
So it would have to be a motion to, I'm not ready to.
Okay, we're gonna move on, no action. Jamie, thank you for your time and the relationships you have with the kids to what Chad said, it's impactful and we do appreciate that.
Yeah, please don't misconstrue anything that I have recommended with the fact that I don't play your position at all. I mean, I think you do wonderful things for this district and I can't thank you enough for what you do.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think you're still on deck. School rifle safe topic.
So I think you guys all got the guidelines, right?
Yep.
We came up with, we were tasked with coming up with something, not necessarily a policy, but that would kind of let the board know how we're gonna handle things and who's responsible for what. So just to go through it quickly, the school board did approve a placement of a gun safe in the high school on May 18th of 2023. And the district would implement the following procedural guidelines for safe operation and storage of the gun safe and its contents. So I will have custody of the key. It is not in the building. I'm not going to tell you where it is because that would defeat the purpose, right? But it is not in any of the buildings. I am the only one, the chief has the spare key, but I am the only one with access and control of that key, and it will not be accessible to any staff or students. So the only time that it would be in the building is if I was accessing the safe for the rest of the guidelines. The SRO and the chief of police, we, or the sheriff in case of Abrams, we are the only ones that know the passcode. So the safes that we have are three different mechanisms. You've got a key, you've got a passcode, and then you've got biometric prints. So me, just the key, me and the supervisor of the department would have the passcode. And then you guys approved all law enforcement officers actively working within the police department and the O'Connell County Sheriff's Department to have biometric access to that safe. So I have already a spreadsheet created that has the names of anybody who has a biometric print when it was entered, and then there's a set or a column for when they exit. So I am responsible for maintaining, inputting all of those and removing them when the time comes for somebody, whether, you know, for whatever reason, if they went to a different department, they retired, whatever it is, that they would no longer have access to that safe. I also will visually inspect the safe and its contents on a weekly basis. So I have a separate spreadsheet, and it was recommended to me, and I think that's what we're gonna end up doing rather than just a spreadsheet, is that we have an actual log that's hanging inside of the safe itself that I can sign when I visually inspect it and put a date on that. And then once a year, the department certified firearms instructors will inspect and clean the weapons, and then make sure that they're operational and safe on that front. So we are providing emergency response kits to be placed inside each one of those safes, which will have items necessary for responding to critical medical needs resulting from a safety-related incident. So say that I needed to access something within that safe, my understanding and the chief's understanding would be that I would leave that safe open and accessible if I have the weapon that is within it. So that way, if any of the administrators or somebody else wants to utilize the medical kit, providing services to students for whatever reason, that they would have access to that medical kit. And then anything, all it says is that if we can use out of the nurse's stash to replace what we use out of the medical kit, that we're going to do that. If it's not replaceable through you guys, that the police department's responsible for restocking the response kit if things need to be replaced or not available in the nurse's office. So it's not real complicated, and it's just a matter of being organized and keeping the cross references in place. So those, we would need to do a separate one, obviously, for each building. The police department did get a grant, so the chief wrote a grant for 3 rifles. You guys covered the first safe. We will have, because we own them, we will have 3 rifles available for the 3 that are within O'Connell Falls. I know that he was going to talk to Sheriff Scarvin about Abrams, and the primary reason for that is because he's slightly uncomfortable with a weapon that we own not being in our jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe Todd has talked about putting one in Suring anyway, so it sounds like he's on board with outfitting Abrams. But we currently have the med kits and the weapons and the funds to buy 2 additional safes whenever you're ready to move on putting them in other buildings.
Okay. So you need a motion for that?
Right.
I'll make a motion for the board to approve to put safes and rifles in each building in the district.
Second. And can we add purchasing additional safes?
Yes.
Yeah. Motion, so motion by Brian, second by Chad. And that was to consider to basically add the rifle safes to the other district buildings.
School buildings
School buildings, yeah.
that do not currently have them.
Okay, any other discussion?
Will that mean that'll go in the current middle school and then it'll be taken out for the, okay.
Yeah, so we just need to work then on finding where we can put it in the middle school safely. I think that we would report back if we were struggling to do that. But yeah, it would go in the current one and then we would just move it to the new one when the time comes.
Just to clarify before you do that, is it the Ocampos Elementary, Abrams Elementary, Washington, not like the fall alternative school that we don't own, right? Or
Correct.
we-
Correct.
I just want to make
Yeah,
sure
no,
that we're
good-
very
good
clear in the
clarification.
minutes.
And we're approving the school rifle safe guidelines
Correct.
that you reviewed as part of the motion, correct? Correct. Okay, all in favor?
I,
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank
All
you.
right,
Thank
you. All right, resignation modification. So in a past meeting, the board took action related to liquidated damages as part of a resignation request for Dr. Becky Angus. And given that since that time, Dr. Angus has been involved in a long-term substitute position, the ask is that the board consider waiving the liquidated damages that had been previously assessed.
we didn't get anything in our folder.
I'll move on that.
Motion by,
I'll second it.
motion by Sarah, second by Ken. Any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. On new business, the annual library plan. So I think Mr. Jeffers and Mrs. Penny Stuber are going to present an update to the board. Thank you for waiting so patiently.
Yeah. Thank you for having us, having me. So, hopefully you've had a chance to look at it a little bit. First, we have an infographic up on the board. That's the Future Ready Library Plan, and that goes along with the Future Ready Library Schools. Very learner-centered, but all the little wedges around it are all the different items that make a successful library program happen. So, second slide just shows that the state requires that each library has a plan on file and it's board approved. So in the past, this policy was part of the tech plan, but then they separated it out. And the DPI worked with all of the librarians. They had lots of meetings and gave us the tool of we're using the Future Ready tool to help you guide you with as you make a plan. It's obviously the things that we've always been doing, but it was never really this nicely organized. I think I remember, maybe Mr. Harder remembers the time that I came and I think I spoke for like an hour. But it was really fun because it's an opportunity to talk about what's going on in our program, and I like to do all that stuff. So anyway, the next shows how it's all broken down. So the first thing the DPI had said, don't focus on every single wedge because there's just no way, and especially I'm the only person for the 4 schools. So I worked with Heather and I worked with Corey to identify what are some of the most important things that we could do. So the first one that was most important related to our students is number 1, and that's the curriculum instruction and assessment. So the main focus in the tiny little writing, it talks about building instructional partners with the teachers, that the curriculum that we're presenting in our libraries is integrated with the curriculum that's going on in the classroom. And how did we come up with this curriculum? The state has its own instructional technology literacy standards. Then there's the American Association of School Librarians. They have standards, and ISTE, I can't even think of what that one stands for. They have standards. Yeah, good job. He told me he'd be here to help with it, so. All right. So we looked at, I brought in all these, some other states actually have library standards, but Wisconsin doesn't. Wisconsin wants to keep it open because if they put standards in place, that might mean you would need more of me to make those standards happen. So theirs is pretty flexible. So what we did is we took all of the options that were out there and broke it down into power standards. And Corey and Heather had a huge part in that. We looked at so many different things and boiled it down to what's the most important. And that's really research and inquiry. It really, really is. But you still have to have that balance between appreciating literature and applying it to what's going on in the curriculum. So that's what we did. And the second bullet says we create and implement a scope and sequence of library media student learning targets.
So if any of your little people say, library's really different, and we see Mrs. Stieber only once a month, but we just see her for instruction, that's really happening. And it's been really neat. I'll be honest, I was worried because it's changed and everybody's always, what's gonna happen? But what you had before, you had kids coming in, they've got their 30 minutes, so they might come in late. And okay, that's 5 minutes off, we gotta give them in our seats, we have to okay, what's going on? And then let's get some books, that's gonna take 10, 15 minutes. How much time is left for good instruction? 10 minutes. That wasn't enough. So we tried to decide, let's do it in a different way. Also, part of that was developing a calendar that I would be in each school 6 days a month, dividing my time equally. And I feel a lot less stressed. I really like it. I think the kids are enjoying it, that we spend more time together. I'm really liking it. The second one that we are focusing on is number 3, the robust infrastructure. And that is where we really want to take a look at. When COVID happened, oh man, we went digital. We started getting all kinds of databases and electronic books. So now we've got a lot of those things in place, and it's time to really audit and assess, okay, which ones are being used? Which ones have I promoted and taught the teachers how to use it? Because we might have it, a fantastic resource, but if no one's really worked with them on what its strengths and weaknesses are, they may not be being used as much as we would like them to be used. So, but there's some fantastic things that are out there that obviously no one wants their kids okay, here's your research assignment, go to Google, good luck. That's just not, that's horrible, that's horrible. So we purchase databases with primary resources and good journals and documented, things that can be researched and proven and trusted. We don't want them just going out there. We talked about the health class for the vaping and everything. Mr. Solaric, the minute we had the Gale database on health resources, he was in there immediately. He was our first one doing the trials of, yes, I will use this product. So it's just nice that they don't just randomly have to look for things, so we can show them the good places to go. So the next one we're doing is the collaborative leadership, and it's purple. It's number 7. So it's really important that I am doing some leading outside of the library, and that means meeting with people, talking about your classroom curriculum. How are things changing? If you're doing decodable reading, what is that? How can the library give you authentic resources that will help with those early reading things with the kids right now? So I've told so many people, I feel like a beginning teacher, because it's just, I've learned so much about little people and the differences on what they need to do, and what didn't fall apart. What I was worried about was the programming. So we've got people like Carrie and Danielle out at Abrams and Anna at Washington and Heather at the high school promoting our Battle of the Book still. We're still doing global read aloud, but they're taking it further than I could, because I'm focusing on instruction now and making sure that our resources are high quality. That's the main thing. And again, I just highlighted it, that collaborating with those classroom teachers. I pretty much just said, if you see me and you're doing research, I will stop everything I have planned and do your research, because I don't want to teach them skills in isolation. I want it to matter. Guys, let's use this. It's so much easier to use culturegrams than everybody goes and grabs one book that could be outdated on a country or a state. Let's go to a good spot and let's have fun with it, because some of those, there's interviews with kids who live there, interviews with adults. It's fantastic. I love the things that are out there. All right, and the last one that we're focusing on, number 8, is the use of space and time. So to help the teachers know where I am without having a luggage tracker, no, we have a calendar. so that they can always look and see where I'll be. If they need to talk to me, they'll know that, oh, she's teaching at this time. So now I can get my answer from her, or I could call her if I wanted to, what building she's in. It's been really neat. Like at Washington, we had some people come over and say, we've got some kids who are lower level, they need some help in science. They don't understand how the human eye was working. So we asked the tech department, can we get these 5 kids access to Brain Pop Junior? And we made that happen. So just little things like that, because I was there, that they came in and talked to me, and it was really fun. So there's a calendar that's out there, and one of the last things, develop library spaces that are dynamic, foster curiosity and creativity through flexible seating and flexible storage. We love our new high school. Once we have our new carpet and stuff, we'll do like a grand reopening and balloons and, well, stuff like that. So we'll do some more fun stuff. And then the biggest thing is create, update, and codify district-wide procedures and practices. So you're coming with 4 different schools. You've had 3 different adults at one time, now down to 1. It'd be nice to have everything to be a little bit more the same. So we're working toward that. That's a work in progress as it is, but that's all I have. I didn't want to do too much because I know it's getting a little late and all that good kind of stuff. Do you have any questions?
No, this is great. This is great to see.
Oh, thanks, guys. Thank you for caring about our kids so much. I haven't been to one of these meetings in a long time, so this is wonderful. Thank you for what you do.
Yeah,
Thank you.
this is awesome.
It does need to be approved.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that means we'll see you at least once a year.
You don't have to, but I would definitely come back if you would like me to. I think it'd be neat at least once a year to just come back and talk about some of the updates that we've made.
Yes.
I'll have pictures. No. We'll read a story. It's getting great.
One thing I do want to clarify on here, so DPI, it says annual on here, it's not actually annual, the state requires a long-range plan. So that's why there's numbers on the top there, to kind of say, okay, if we approve this in 2023, our objective is to try to carry these particular things out with evidence of the ones that are, the bolded ones are, their recommendation, again, like Penny said, was not to do all 8. To have them in your plan, but to at least highlight the ones that you're focusing on in that long-range plan. So that's kind of why we try to keep them all on one piece of paper, but then have some bolded ones to say those were, but so it wouldn't be an annual plan unless you'd like an annual update, we can certainly do that.
Okay.
So
Thanks for
we're
clarification.
Yeah.
we're approving the library media plan. We are not approving an annual library plan.
The long-range plan,
long range,
so
yeah.
DCI requires that long-range plan, so this would be, this is essentially, this document is what we would submit through WISE data, basically, to say that this was our long-range plan.
Oh, sorry.
So I think we can just call it library media plan, is that?
That's
fine?
what it's
Okay.
labeled, yeah.
All right, so we need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the library media plan.
Perfect.
And I will second.
Motion by Sarah,
That was Emily.
second by Emily.
First by Carrie.
Motion by Emily, second by Carrie.
Oh, sorry, yes,
Right?
Sarah.
Opposite.
Yes,
Motion by
sorry.
Carrie,
Carrie.
second by Emily.
Second by Emily, sorry.
Wait, what?
I second it.
Okay, okay.
Motion by Carrie,
Sorry.
second by
That was-
Emily.
It
A
was
really
in my,
easy motion.
because me and you both went to make the motion,
Yeah, we both
and it
took a
was,
breath.
I was ready to make it, and then you, okay, sorry, and then you made it, I'm like, wait, what's happening? Sorry, we're good.
All in favor?
I.
Opposed? Motion
Thank you,
carried.
Penny.
All right, 24-25 high school course revisions. We've got
All right.
Mr. Stewart, and I think
Heather is
Ms.
here as
Kangas
well.
is here as well.
Yeah, if you have any questions for her, but I want to hand up at YouTube. Be okay. All right, so we have 3, so just so everybody knows, our timeline, we already started obviously planning for next year, fall of the current school year. So as part of our process, we let all of our staff know that they can submit paperwork, an application, and give us access to that. That just highlights kind of like the process of what they have to go through if they're looking to offer the course. And so this year we had, for the 24-25 school year, we have 3 courses that I'd like to just, that our staff had proposed and went through the process. We went with our
some of our curriculum committee members. Was it last week you did that? Must have been today's Monday. And then these are the three. So we have computer-aided machining 2, which is CAM 2. That's a class that will be taught by Mr. Versa. And this is a continuation of our CAM 1 course. CAM 1 is an NWTC course. CAM 2 will not be an NWTC course. And that question came up, so I just want to clarify the why. So CAM 1, NWTC's CAM 1 is really coded because it's a heavy coding class. And so it's really teaching students to be an operator. So our kids, when they get into the CAM 1, it's not maybe as exciting as they were hoping for. They don't have a chance to kind of engineer, create, and problem solve. A continuation of CAM, that course, if we were to offer as CAM 2 as NWTC, would be just more operating. And so this class will offer our students more opportunities to create and really just be more well-rounded with utilizing the software and the Master CAM program. So that's CAM 2. That'll be an independent study course. So John would have those students come in that fits their schedule. Second course would be offered by Katie Bowl. She's our computer science licensed teacher in our math department. And that's why it says not a math credit, because we house it under the math listing of things in our course book. Katie currently teaches computer science principles. And this course would be computer science A, would be taught at an AP level. And so this course would be offered every other year of computer science principles. So students would take computer science principles. And what you can see on here is computer science principles is open to students grades 10 through 12. So if they're a sophomore and they want to take computer science A, they would need to take computer science principles as a sophomore so that they could take computer science A as a junior. Make sense?
Yeah.
So that'll be offered on all school years starting at the even number, and computer science principles will be offered every year starting on an odd fall year. All right. And then, so again, that will not cause any issue as far as staffing is concerned. Katie will have the same number of preps more likely, but just instead of teaching computer science principles, she'll be teaching computer science A. The last one is graphic design 2. That's Mr. Nagy proposed that one. It's just a continuation of graphic design 1. He has a lot of students that are looking for a continuation, so we're looking to offer that course as well. And that'll be something that we'll work through, obviously, when we look at our student course numbers and see how many students are looking into the course, and then we'll make some determinations about how that course is offered, whether it's in conjunction with another course or whether it's a standalone. So those are the 3 that we got at the high school. Looking for your approval, and we'll add those into our course book.
Okay.
Any questions?
I'd move that we add the 3 recommended courses to our high school curriculum.
Motion by Ken,
I'll second.
second by Sarah. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thanks, Stuart. Mr. Taylor. So apparently, taking the kids out of state for a field trip one time wasn't enough. You gotta come back and ask again? So-
Yeah, we like going to all different locations in the country.
All right.
Make our students well-rounded. I'm not sure what you
They
all.
just shared that email or the information came to you in your packet.
Awesome. So, and actually, I was just looking, because in my agri science class, we looked at some of the different highlights of FFA, and 1969 is when Washington Leadership Conference started. So we're going into year 54. Going to be going into year 55 here shortly of this event. And I myself am a product of that conference back when I was in high school. So it's neat to be be a student that went through the O'Connell Falls planning of that, because their teacher at that time planned that event for the state of Wisconsin to take students from as many chapters as they could to now being the teacher in that role to help plan and do that programming. It's coming full circle, and it's really fun to see. So the trip typically, we start planning it very shortly, right after we come back from the Thanksgiving holiday. National FA will send out to all the large group coordinators intentions for travel times and where we want to be placed. Hotel is at the Omni Shoreham Hotel. It's a 5-star hotel, and the northwest side of the city. And we travel with Progressive Travel. They are a coach bus company out of Spencer, Wisconsin. And the two bus drivers that have taken us in the past have been phenomenal to work with when buses are running properly and not running properly. We've had a male, female chaperone that go on the trip. I'm the male chaperone and take female chaperones with us. It's just straight out, straight back from DC. And while out there, there are adult programs that go along with some of the same things that the students do, but they are exposed to meeting people from around the country. You know, I still know who my roommates were when I went to WLC back in 2006. And we still converse. We're all within the industry, and one's an actor. That's very different than Egg. He's been on a few of the different sitcoms, so that's been really entertaining to watch. But anyways, what a great opportunity for our students to be connected with agriculture folks, not only at National Convention, but also at an event like this. The sticker price has been around $1,500 between our creative fundraising and what our alumni is able to fundraise as well. We can be able to send our students for near to nothing, as long as they're helping with some of those different fundraisers to help themselves, along with filling out the grant applications that are due February 1st from our State FFA Foundation, which is sponsored by the State Alumni Association. We're trying to find ways to be able to afford sending our students, and they don't have to see all of that cost or no cost to be able to attend for our students. And our FFA alumni acts as a fiscal agent for this trip. So whenever those bills come to the school district, they will be forwarded to our FFA Alumni Association and supporters group for financial payment. With
Looking for eye contact there, Kim.
I guess if there's any other questions that you have with me, please let me know. It's 20 hours out, 20 hours back. And on the way out, Progressive Travel likes to have the students stop at the Flight 93 site. And then we come to find out that even the female chaperone I took last year was one of my former students. They all worked alive during 9/11.
Oh.
That the two bus drivers and myself were the only people on the bus that were not here when 9/11 happened. So when you drive past the Pentagon, and we drove out to the Flight 93, they got to see something they can go see in their civics books. That is quite powerful. And the kids always want me here, Mr. Taylor, you got to listen to this phone. It's a voice recording from one of the loved ones on the plane. I broke out in tears this year. I couldn't. And they're like, oh, this is what you're living through, folks. This is the power of it. Hopefully none of this is ever in your history as students and people on this planet, but this is something that the three of us have been through. So it hit different. It's a very impactful trip, and every time people come back from it, they're different. And to see 5 of the state officers on the state officer group this year went with us the last 2 years. They're different people, and they remember that. So I'm looking for approval to keep going out to DC, to keep planning these trips. And if you have any questions, please let me know.
How many kids roughly?
So the bus holds.
How many we take?
Yeah.
How many do we take? I'm looking for 2 to 4, depending.
Got it.
Numbers haven't come out from nationals yet for cost, and nothing's getting cheaper. But I have 2 reserved seats for O'Connell Falls students to go on right now. If I can get more on, I will try. Or kids can always fly as well, because a lot of people fly to DC. They don't sit on a bus for 20 hours. Yeah, we chose to take the bus for that. So right now, yes, we have 2.
Okay.
To answer your question.
All right. I was just curious.
Yeah.
I will say that visit to Flight 93 Memorial is very impactful, like you said. I took my family went to DC in early August, and we didn't plan on stopping there on the way. It just happened that we bunked overnight, and on the way, it was literally 15 minutes out of our way to stop there. So we said, well, we're probably never be in this area ever again. So let's take the 15 minutes and go there. Changes you. You know, to go through the memorials and to listen to the recordings and everything you just said. It is very true. It gives you chills.
Yeah, I'm shivering right now thinking, like, just, it's the flashback of, there's the big boulder and yep, that's where the plane landed and people are like, what's the firewall? I mean, and I was an 8th grade student watching this on live TV. You know, we all remember where we were that day, and when we talk about it in school, it hits different. It hits very different. So it's neat to show the kids that, and then you go to past the Pentagon, the bus will drive us past the Pentagon up to the, I mean, they're like, well, that part of the building looks new. It is. It is new. Unfortunately, you can see where that plane went in. That's the impacts of 9/11, and they've only ever read it in the civics book. You know, that's just one piece of the pie of what we're doing on there. Other questions?
I think it's incredible. The FFA Alumni Association, just the amount of funding that you get from that group is very, I think, unique to a lot of other associations and so incredibly cool.
You know, and Wisconsin gets recognized at National Convention for having one of the best alumni, and a lot of that goes into part what O'Connell Falls does. This is a catalog of the alumni, the support network of all different age groups from all different professions is phenomenal. We work together extremely well, and there's so many different avenues that they're helping us think about to make sure we're reaching with our students, to push us to become better teachers, to become better FFA advisors. And I'm thankful for that. I am not the same teacher I was 13 years ago. And I thank them for that. You know, when I moved here 8 years ago, I'm awestruck at the things we've been able to accomplish and where kids are going. So thank you, Ken. Kudos to you.
Yes.
And being president of that organization and the team of alumni supporters that are in officer positions and non-officer positions as well that make this work.
Who would have known this agenda? Who would have known this agenda item was the one that was going to make me emotional?
FFA.
If you want to come on with female chaperone, let me know.
I'm thinking about it, Mr. Taylor. Thank you.
I'm gonna
Sorry.
go ahead and make a motion to approve the request for high school FFA students to travel outside of the state in July of 2024.
Second. Motion by Sarah, second by Chad. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Motion carried. Thank you, Wally.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have a closed session.
O'Brien.
I will move that we consider convening in the closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute section 19.851E to conduct specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, specifically to discuss the status of negotiations concerning a real estate easement. Wisconsin statute section 19.851C to consider the employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employer over which the board has jurisdiction, specifically to discuss the employment status. Wisconsin statute section 19.851F to consider financial, medical, social, personnel histories, or disciplinary data for the specific persons, which, if discussed in public, would be likely to have a substantial adverse effect upon the reputation of any person referred to, specifically to review a citizen complaint and to review student behavioral information.
Second. Motion by Brian, second by Chad. We'll take a roll call.
Hill.
Yes.
Trudeau.
Yes.
Carter.
Yes.
Early.
Yes.
Baumler.
Yes.
Schindel. Yes. Gardreck.
Yes. 9:54.
Yes.
Come on, Stu. Snack and potty.
I don't know how you all can make it that long
Oh, there we
without
go.
going.
Thank you.
I